Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we continue with the compilation videos which are aimed at people who are working or people who are driving or people who just have a heck of a lot of time and want something on in the background. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from Tay3600. My failure to plan is now your problem. Let's jump right in. So I work in customer service in the automotive industry. As part of the services we offer guests, we perform a state-mandated car inspection so people can register their car with the state. It's a simple process that can take about 15 minutes if you book an appointment with us. But every month we get flooded with people who forgot to do the inspection on the last week of each month. It is a mad dash for last-minute appointments to fit people in before they're late. Now, we don't make money off this type of service. In fact, it's a state-set fee, and we realistically lose money doing these inspections on labor cost. I preface this to state that doing these state inspections does not benefit my shop, but we do it because it helps our customers. Front door opens to a male Karen coming in on a Friday afternoon midday. This distinguished gentleman, we'll call him Tim, walks in at around 1 p.m. in the afternoon and slaps his keys on the countertop, informing my front counter teammate that he needs an inspection now. Now, understand that even though all of our appointments were booked up days ago, we will still bend over backwards to help someone out. We totally get that things don't always go according to plan in life, so we do what we can to help. That is, as long as you're a nice person. When you start trying to dictate how we're going to help you, that does not fly at my store. Tim decided that today he was going to do exactly that. After we advised him we can either wait almost 2 hours to try to work him into a slot as we process our already scheduled appointments or book an appointment for him next week, Tim lets us know that booking an appointment the following week after the deadline was not an option for him, but he's got time right now, so he's going to generously give us 2 hours of his time, and we need to figure out how to get him in. Cue malicious compliance. I stepped in to take over the conversation for my front counter staff who have been dealing with him up until now. Okay sir, we're happy to help. I'll get your keys out to the technician, you just have a seat and make yourself comfortable. Immediately, I walked the keys out to my technician with explicit instructions. After explaining to my tech that Tim is acting like a dirty trash can full of poop, I gave the express instructions that we will not even touch his vehicle until 2 hours have passed. Mind you, as Tim sits in the lobby stewing, I have the pleasure of servicing several other customers who set their appointments days ahead of time. 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and even a 7-minute inspection for an all-electric car. Things are flowing so smoothly for all of the appointments who did the things the right way, and it's showing on Tim's face. After the first hour, Tim finally has the courage to speak up. I really appreciate y'all trying to work me in, but do you know how long it's going to be? No, Tim, you don't get to be nice now and try to expedite your vehicle. You don't get to be nasty to my staff and still get it your way. Sorry, Tim, we're still trying to get it fit in, like I said, about 2 hours before we can see the truck. Mind you, the lobby's totally empty and all customers have already been serviced early. It's perfect. Fast forward another hour, and his multiple attempts to make small talk to amend his horrible manners and treatment to one of my staffers, and his cars finally being brought into the shop bays. Then moments later, my technician walks into the lobby with a giddy smile. Boss, his truck needs wipers to pass inspection, they're torn and fail the vehicle. Passing on this wonderful news to Tim, he agrees to have the tech install some because he of course did not bring any of his own. At this point, I feel quite satisfied that Tim's learned his lesson with a little additional help from the universe in him needing to also replace wiper blades. But apparently, the universe was not quite done teaching Tim a lesson. His car still failed the inspection. The last part of the test is run by a computer that reads the internal control modules of the car. It's a totally automated process that can't be tampered or affected by the inspector. The only thing that can interfere is if the cars had the battery replaced and those control modules have been reset. But that's exactly what Tim did. Hours before coming to see me, he replaced the battery and cleared those exact modules. So at the end of the day, Tim was his own worst enemy and failed his own car, having to book an appointment for the following week. But with a little help from the universe, he hopefully learned a very valuable lesson that service workers are not your slaves, and to always tip your waiters. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Chance University 92. It says, I guess he didn't know about the old standby of here's $100 for you and another $100 for the tech. For lunch, of course, also to not be a dick. Yep, a little bit of respect can go a very long way. And also, your failure to plan does not constitute an emergency on my behalf. So what I'm getting out of this story is that the guy replaced his battery to clear the codes out of the sensors on the car, meaning that if there was something that was wrong on there, it's been cleared out, and he didn't want it to show up on the test, but the test knows when they've done that, so he really screwed himself. That's the kind of person that when they're walking out of your store or dealership or whatever it is, with their tail between their legs, you just want to stand back and give them a rousing round of applause. Our next story today comes to us from With Trees. Control your friends. Okay, let's jump right in. Disclaimer, I tried to abridge some details, both in attempts to make it shorter and in order to avoid accidental recognition. If something is messy or unclear, it might have to do with said clumsy attempts. Background: I work in a community-related nonprofit. The chairman of the board, Anthony, not real name, is trying to get into a political career. It's no secret that Anthony and I do not see eye to eye ideologically. I try to be diplomatic about it for the most part. However, he makes it a point to both shoot down everything I say and attempt to steal it and present it as his own, while clearly not understanding any of it. I'll also note that part of my job is focused on minorities, which generally get either ignored or approached in a very clumsy manner. Recently, Anthony launched a policy open table, an idea that he stole and misunderstood from me, but that's a different problem. Since I figured it's going to be a group of white men with ideas that are the policy equivalent of a stale instant vanilla pudding, I invite friends to join. There wasn't really any strategy involved, just people I appreciate and thought would want to participate. As we arrived, it became clear that I was right to a comical extent. Half the table was a group of white men, and the other side of the table was people I brought. The men Anthony invited didn't hide their disinterest and disrespect for whatever a group of women and other minorities, and ones who didn't bother themselves with respectability games at that, had to say. Attempted to ignore or dismiss them, a couple of my friends were having none of it and kept calling them out. They started arguing loudly. At some point, I got a text message from Anthony sitting across the table saying, "Control your friends. I can't have any discourse going like this." Malicious Compliance, Part 1. As I found the request incredibly ridiculous, I screenshot the conversation. As we left, I sent it in our group chat on WhatsApp. My friends, who were quite upset and frustrated, decided to put up a bit of a theater. Next meeting, I arrived with two of my most outspoken friends, Liz and Rhea. Except this time they showed up in full professional mode, equipped with a written agenda, references, and prepared talking points. They present themselves professionally, Liz being a lawyer and Rhea being a social worker with 5 years of fieldwork down her belt. At first, they said nothing. As soon as I spoke, one of the men began arguing. I nodded, Rhea. Rhea cuts him off, citing the precise number supporting our claim, where the numbers are from, and ended with the remark that this information was, in fact, freely available for anyone who made the minimal effort to look it up. The man moves in obvious discomfort, but attempts to double down, now claiming that the plan we were suggesting is not legally plausible. Liz dryly quotes the exact law he was referring to, and without stopping to breathe, explains precisely what the law in question does and does not cover. It is perfectly plausible, and in fact, was done before in Example 1 and Example 2. Again, pointing out that it was a non-vague, explicit wording. All it took was checking. The conversation got heated again, with Liz and Rhea slipping back to calling out the other's misogyny, transphobia, racism, and general incompetence. I wait a little before saying quietly, Liz, Rhea, that's enough. Liz and Rhea, as we agreed on ahead of time, immediately stop arguing. Anthony looks slightly terrified. Malicious Compliance Part 2. The second part wasn't really orchestrated, but was way more satisfying, since we started talking about politics a lot more as a result of the inciting incidents, mapped all of the resources and players on the field, created work plans, and so on. We realized we could very well organize for real, so we founded an operation group. As of last week, members of the newly founded operation group met with the VP, who happened to be my direct boss, and the CEO on 2 different topics. Hand 2 position papers regarding policies, listing precisely the same things that were on our agenda to begin with. Now, instead of nicely discussing it casually with Anthony and his friends, allowing him to take credit for it and use it to his benefit, it was sent to the entirety of the board and overseeing committee, with the full backing of the VP and CEO, who pointed out publicly that it supports my work plan, which Anthony went out of his way to shoot down. At the moment, he's mailing me constantly asking me to schedule a meeting on integrating it into the organization's official policies. My boss replied politely on my behalf that I'm quite busy, and he will have to wait until I have the time for him. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called HMS Slartybartfast. Okay. So to be clear, Anthony likes stealing others' work and taking credit for it. In this case, you were able to steal back your idea, get it implemented, and take into account the very people Anthony was trying to exclude. Bravo, well done. Especially when Anthony is all but asking you to do it. OP responded to this one and said, yeah, and turn around the power balance while at it. We're not trying to make him sit down and listen anymore. Funnily enough, this is precisely what we were trying to tell him in the first place. You want to run for office? We can get you the backing nobody else has. You know, OP might actually be doing Anthony a favor by exposing him to the criticism he'll receive when he actually runs for office. He can learn from this experience and become a better and more successful politician. But I highly doubt he'll actually learn, so moving on. Our last story today comes to us from Just Doing It. Don't want to pay me for my work? Alright, I'll undo it. Let's jump right in. Not exactly sure if this is malicious compliance or pro-revenge, but here we go. I'm naming the company name because I've had many issues with them, and everyone should be warned. So, have to say this first, beware of working for the delivery service Shipped. Today, I picked up an order for delivery. It had gone promo, money added on Shipped. It was for delivery in a town that is 15 minutes from the store of purchase. Alright, not too bad for $16, especially since I live within 10 minutes of the town I was delivering to. I take it. I go to the store, receive the groceries, and I'm on my merry way. I send a text to the customer that I'm on my way and will reach them before said time. No response, so I give a quick call. It does a weird thing and ends. Doesn't even go to voicemail. Huh, whatever. I sent them a text. Get to the house, knock, no answer, leave the bag outside the door, and walk away. Make it to my car, start said car. Woman pokes her head out the porch door as I'm about to leave. You were very lovely, woman on porch, thank you for your kindness. Waves me down, looking highly confused. So I, unfortunately, stop the car and get out. Woman asks what this is. Why, your order, ma'am, I say, looking all happy. I didn't order anything, she says. Oh, no. Did anyone else in the house? Nope. Oh, no. So there is a wrong address on the delivery. I've never dealt with this before, and I have to leave to catch a movie with friends in 30 minutes. Cue me going next door at each house on that small street while reaching out to Shipped support and while trying to call the customer again. Does the same weird thing with the phone. Give up on that. Proceed to knock on doors. Nope, nobody's. Alright. Shipped suggestion? Just drive back and return it. No Shipped. I'm a delivery contractor. I'm not a volunteer, nor am I a charity. I am hired by you to fulfill deliveries. As far as I am concerned, I have delivered to the address on file. I'm not reaching into my bank account to correct someone else's mistake. For the total extra 30-minute round trip, I'll need $10 on top of the initial pay. Thanks, gas, for being so expensive. No, they say, we'll give you $8.10. No, I say, I have plans in now 10, what should have been 30, mind you, minutes that I will now miss. $8.10 will not cover the gas and wear and tear for the extra 30 minutes. I will need no less than $10, or I will leave them on the curb of the noted delivery address, 580 Blanking Street in Dickoff. We'll give you $5 and can't do any more than that, they say. Wait, I say, $5 on top of the additional $8.10 to make it $13.10 on top of what I'm being paid, or just $5? I want everything in writing, specifically because I knew Shipt was going to do exactly what they did next. Oh yes, $13.10, but we can't do any more, they say. Fine, I'm returning it to the store now, I say. Go to the store, do the whole return process, get in contact with Shipt as they directed me to with the requested information. Get a message on my phone from Shipt to the effect of, your order has been canceled and $20.80 issued to your account. What? I contact Shipt, say I'm confused, say it looks as though they were only giving me $5 on top of the original order payment when they said I would be compensated $13.10. I was told, oh, we won't give you any more than $5. But you already said, is there someone else I can speak to? Nope, $5, take it or leave it. Alright, fine. Don't want to pay me the agreed upon wage? That's a breach of contract, meaning you never actually paid me for this return. So what did I do? I marched right back into the store, asked the worker who had taken the return what she had done with it, snatched the bag up, strode up to a manager, informed them of what happened, and told them since I wasn't being paid to return the groceries, I would be taking them back to the last place I was contracted and paid to deliver them, 580 Blanking Street in Dickoff. Told him if he wanted to be recompensated for the groceries, he could charge Shipt, as they were not willing to pay to have them returned. Messaged Shipt from my car informing them of this and gave them 30 minutes. Yep, plans definitely ruined. It's now 2 hours later to rescind their rescission and pay me what they actually agreed to and owed me. Had to reach out 2 separate times because the first girl, despite me being very polite, would not go to anyone else, such as management, to ask for an exception to this policy, considering they had literally told me they would pay me more. Actually had the gall to ask if I had taken the items I had returned, and all I had to say in response was, "Did you pay me to return them?" Second girl was much more helpful, reached out to her team to see if anything could be done. Shipt still wouldn't be swayed, but I thanked her profusely for at least trying. So in the end, they said they wouldn't do any more than $5. I told them, alright, I reject that offer. Just pay me for the original delivery because 580 is where they'll be. You can pay another Shipt shopper $15 to come get them. Drove back, it was on my way home, dropped them off, and left. I'm not a charity, I don't work for free, and I certainly don't pay to work. I'm going to be messaging ShopRite Corporate directly along with New Jersey Labor Board because this is not the first issue with wages I've had with Shipt, and honestly, ShopRite should seek compensation from them. Have fun paying for the more than $13.10 of groceries that are now rotting on the curb, Shipt. Now, Opie added an edit onto this one at the bottom responding to people who said that they were being entitled. It says, side note, to anyone who may say, you're being entitled, no, I am not. It is not entitled to expect an agreed upon wage. It is extortion to expect me to work for less than agreed. Imagine you accepted an order from a delivery service, fulfilled that obligation, and suddenly they decided to pay you less than half for that completed order. Or you're working a job and they suddenly cut your pay without any notice or agreement upon your part. As I explained to them, I never would have returned the groceries for $5 because it wasn't my mistake. Would have returned them no problem if it had been. And I would be paying to return them, plus the missed plans, plus the lost time. So no, I am no way in the wrong, and I don't care what anyone who thinks otherwise has to say. Well, OP, I've done a little bit of this delivery stuff myself for that DD place that's up here in Canada. And, well, I can tell you one thing, the address that comes up is the address that you take the things to, you drop it off, you don't look back, and you get out of there as quickly as you can, because, honestly, you fulfilled your obligation, and they have to pay you for that. And you don't need to go back and fix a mistake that wasn't yours to begin with in the first place. The customer who didn't get their order at whatever address they're at will call back in or place another order through the app, and somebody else will deliver it, and that company will end up paying more to get that stuff out to the proper address. Again, not your problem. Drive away. Don't even look in the rearview mirror. You're done. Our next story today comes to us from Obsidian Winter. Do you want it done right, or do you just want deniability if someone tries to sue? Let's jump right in. Many years ago, I got a temp job at a local soap shop. You know, the fancy kind where it's £5 for a bar of handmade soap. The manager didn't like me. I did things thoroughly and methodically, not quickly, and good enough for now. I also have a very good memory, and I remember things people say and do, especially if those things don't add up. The manager would exaggerate things that made her look good, and conveniently forget things which didn't go her way. I thought she had made a genuine mistake, so I corrected her once and she never forgave me. It was time for the monthly deep clean, and I was tasked with doing the stairs. The shop had a metal spiral staircase which led up to the storeroom, and we had to go up and down it with massive jugs of warm water so customers could try the products. Given the nature of the products, there was also soap flakes everywhere, and they got stuck to this high traffic area. There was about 1/4 centimeter of soap caked into each step. The manager explained in front of most of the staff how important this job was and that it had to be done right. People could get hurt, you see, and you don't want that, do you, OP? She spent more time than was necessary making it very clear that if someone got hurt, then I would be to blame. It was also the most isolating and tedious job. It was obvious that this was revenge for my humiliating the manager. Fine, I went into my little world and started scraping. She wanted all the soap gone. I would remove every scrap of soap. Half an hour later, I had done a couple of steps and I was told that I was being too slow. She suggested that not all of the soap needed to be removed, only enough to make it less slippery. I replied that no, I was doing it properly. The soap on the second layer is just as slippery as the soap on the top layer, so if this was a safety concern, then obviously I needed to remove all the soap. I reminded her that she didn't want anyone to get hurt. The manager continued to criticize me for another half an hour, until she had no choice but to swap me with someone else. She had publicly made a big deal of how important the job was, so now she couldn't backtrack and leave it. A few days later, she spilled a full basin of water down the stairs. The 4 steps I had cleaned were safe to walk on. All the steps she had assigned to someone else, another 6 or so, were slippery as all heck, and she slid down the stairs on her back. She was off work for several weeks, and when she came back, she tried to blame me for not doing the job properly. I reminded her that she slipped on the stairs, which were cleaned by someone else, and that I was pulled off the task for being too thorough. Fortunately, it was a temp job, and I moved on after a couple of months. She still works there, and I've noticed that none of the other staff last more than a year or two. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Captain Get Your Gear Off. You may want to put in an anonymous tip to your local work safety board. At least then it starts a paper trail for others if some crap happens. OP responded to this comment and said, "This was years ago, and the shop has moved venue now. Had I thought of it closer to the time, then I absolutely would do that." Well, OP, you mentioned that the manager still works there, and regardless of what location they're in, I'm betting you if they're still heading up the place, that it's still in the same condition regardless of where it is. So making that call might still be worthwhile. OP, I'm glad that was only a temp job for you and you were able to move on after a couple of months. I'm also glad that your boss learned that karma can be slippery, and apparently it foams up quite nicely. Our next story today comes to us from Mommy Macbeth. You can't reserve seats on public transport. Let's jump right in. We, my aunt and uncle, cousin and dad, were on a long sightseeing ferry ride. It was a 2-hour ride with one stop in the middle. We were the first to get on the ferry, so all of us blocked the window seats in a straight line. It's public transport and there's no concept of reservation, it's first come first serve. We were sitting in the air-conditioned cabin and had the option of going out onto the main deck. Just as we stopped in the middle, my dad went out on the main deck to take some pictures and enjoy the fresh air. Another man gets on the ferry at this stop and takes my dad's window seat, though there were a few other window seats left. My aunt and I told him a number of times quite politely that someone is sitting there, but he only said, "I speak French," and proceeded to not hear us. My dad came back and told him he was sitting there, and this man called the security and complained about my dad. The security told my dad, "Sir, this is public transport. Seats cannot be reserved." My dad said, "All right," and sat down next to him. So the scene right now is window, man, my dad, empty seat, aisle. About 10 minutes later, the man was about to step out on the deck. He left his bag on the seat and got up to leave. My dad asked him to kindly remove his bag. He refused. So my dad refused to get up and moved to let him out. My dad said, "You can't reserve seats, you showed me the rule, kindly follow it yourself." He became very flustered and started clapping his hands and calling for security. Security was also on the deck for the time being, but a barista was there. The man called the barista to help, who didn't understand French either, so he told them in Arabic that my dad was refusing to move to let him out of the seat. The barista was flabbergasted and asked my dad why. I know Arabic, so I intervened and clarified the situation. That is, the man was keeping his bag and reserving his seat, which he told my dad is not allowed. By this time, the man had sorta climbed over my dad to go and call the security, and my dad hasn't budged. Keep in mind that my dad isn't a small man and is quite big with broad shoulders, and the sight of a tiny Frenchman climbing around him was really funny. The security came in and the guy is still feeding them the part of the whole story in Arabic. When they came to ask my dad, he said, "You told me moments ago that reserving seats aren't allowed." He was keeping his bag and going out to the deck, thus reserving his seat because no one would sit down in a seat with a bag in it. The security told him he wasn't allowed to do that and removed his bag. Now, my dad got up and told him that he can sit beside the window. My dad just wanted to prove a point and came and sat beside me. The man was fuming and muttering, "Camera, police," and a number of colorful French abuses, which I know because I have a French friend. He's glaring at us as I'm writing this, and guess what? He isn't sitting in the window seat anymore. OP added an edit at the bottom of this one. It says, "Edit, for everyone saying we should not have blocked a bunch of window seats. Firstly, the ferry was mostly empty, and a lot of window seats were empty because we went during non-peak hours. Secondly, it was a vacation, all of us paid for the seats and wanted to have the best experience. It wasn't traveling from point A to point B, it was a sightseeing tour, and we wanted the best views individually, not sit as a group and have one person enjoy it. And no one was screaming to talk to others. We might take the best seats, but we are still courteous." OP added a second edit after this one. It says, "Edit 2, my dad didn't call security the first time or the second. In both instances, the man called security. The first time, my dad requested him once, and he said he doesn't speak English and got security involved." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Not So Chi Couple. It says, "Your dad is nicer than me. That bag 100% would have been kicked down the aisle and the seat stolen had it been me." What did that guy think would happen after making a big stink about not saving seats? Yep, I do kind of agree with this comment. However, I don't think I would have kicked the bag down the aisle. I would have given it either to the security guard or to the barista and said, "Hey, this was abandoned on this seat. You might want to take care of it in case they come back for it." Our next story today comes to us from Ossipgerd. Terrible policy turns into a double refund. Let's jump right in. I recently purchased a rather lovely reclining sofa from a large furniture warehouse type company. We'll call them Sleepy Country. The sofa was on sale, marked down from about $5,000 to around $3,100. I had been searching for a few days online until I found this one, and I decided to purchase it without seeing it in person. I don't really like salespeople or people in general, but I digress. The sofa was delivered, set up, and everything was great. This should be the end of the story, except 2 days later, I received a promotional email from Sleepy Country saying they had a once-a-year sale happening for the next 5 days. I checked the same sofa on their site, and sure enough, it was an additional $500 off. Sleepy Country is known for decent customer service, so I tried texting their helpline. The agent there, while initially kind, became irate when I brought up the price match issue. "Hello, is this regarding a Sleepy Country purchase?" "Yes, it is." "You have 5 days from the day of delivery to receive a full refund." "I'm actually hoping to price match per your guarantee. I purchased this from you just 2 days ago, and it's gone down in price at the same store. Our once-a-year sale doesn't apply to prior purchases. Here are the terms. Cue malicious compliance. I'm within 5 days of receiving my item, so can I return it for a full refund? If I can't get the price match, I'm just going to request a return and then just purchase the same item again at a lower price. Radio silence. Next I call. I clearly was talking with the same person because they sounded like they had been made well aware of the issue. Well, you're going to have to pay to have it returned to the store if you want to proceed with the return for a refund. That's fine. It will still be cheaper than $500. Let's go ahead and get that scheduled, please. Clearly annoyed, agent transfers me directly to the store to deal with the return. The cool store manager answers, "Hi there, thank you for calling Sleepy Country. How may I help you?" I fill him in on the entire situation. Wow, it doesn't make sense to do that. Since it's so close to the date you purchased it, let's go ahead and process the price match. Great, thank you. I appreciate your great customer service. CSM has trouble processing the refund because they rarely receive refunds on web orders. They put the refund directly on my card instead. Still not the end of the story. A week later, I saw another refund on my card for the same amount for over $500. I thought it would drop off, but it stayed on for some time. Having somewhat of a conscience, I called the CSM to tell him what had happened. "So I talked with you the other week. I received a second refund for the same amount." "So you didn't receive a refund?" "No, I received 2 refunds." "Hold on just a second." Pulls up my record. "Yeah, I don't think there's anything differently I would have done here, so if it's okay with you, I think we can just leave it as it is." "Alright, that's fine with me. Thank you." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Have Reddit. Great username, by the way. Manager's thought process: this is not worth my time to unravel, and I'm following store policy, so I don't give a flying F. Honestly, OP, if you could see the margins that these stores have on that kind of product, your $3,600 couch didn't cost them even a small fraction of that money. Besides, you can walk away from this one with your conscience completely clear because you did let them know and they decided not to do anything about it. That's a win for you in my books. Our next story today comes to us from Long-Suffering Squid. Some can be taught, others have to screw up first. Let's jump right in. A customer called up to place an order on October 10th, 2022. "Good afternoon, Widgets International. This is Squid. How can I help you?" "Hi, this is Chuckles, and I'd like to place an order for widgets for everything and a bag of widgets, location number 12345. After the order is placed, "Alright, and what is the PO number?" "The PO is 101022. "Are you sure, sir? Everything in a bag of widgets corporate usually requires a 7-digit PO number, and this looks like today's date." "You're new, aren't you? Don't worry about it, I'll be fine." I am most definitely not new, and it will not be fine, but okay, sure. "Very well, sir, the order has been placed. The order number is ABCEZAS123. You should receive in about 2 weeks. I place an internal note on the order describing the conversation. 2 weeks later, I was lucky enough to learn about the fallout of the above conversation when I take the following call. "Good afternoon, Widgets International. This is Squid. How can I help you?" "Hi, this is Chuckles from Everything in a Bag of Widgets store number 12345, and I want to know why I haven't received order ABCEZAS123 yet." "Let me look that up, sir." Checks notes, recognizes the order. "It looks like it's been delayed. Probably because of the girl I placed the order with. She was kinda clueless." Yes, I'm sorry about that, sir. She's new and not terribly bright. Let me see if I can find the exact reason the order was delayed." I dig deeper into the notes. Here we are. It looks like the order has been delayed because we don't have a PO number. "I gave the girl a PO number." "Sorry, sir. I mean, we don't have a legitimate PO number. Everything in a Bag of Widgets corporate rejected it because it wasn't 7 digits. And, because it was just the date you placed the order." "Sorry, sir. The girl you spoke to should have caught that. We'll need a new PO number." "Really? Oh, sorry. Let me generate a new PO number for you." "Okay, the PO number is 2460137. "Thank you, sir. I've updated the order. You should have it in about a week." "So long? I placed the order 2 weeks ago." "Sorry, sir. Some people won't listen until you repeat yourself multiple times. I'll make sure the girl knows what she did wrong, and I'll rush this order as much as possible." "Thanks. You've been a great help." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Rhino Rise. It says, "You shouldn't have pretended to be someone else talking down one of your colleagues. It was far too subtle for them to realize. You should have been brutal and honest." It says here, sir, that when we were given the PO, we tried to confirm it was valid as it wasn't in the usual format required by Everything and a Bag of Widgets Corporate, and it would likely be delayed if it was incorrect. But the guy who did the ordering was adamant that the date would suffice. Maybe he was new and needs some more training. If you're able to provide a valid PO, I'd be happy to get the order processing for you. A lot of companies have that customer is always right attitude. That kind of service is actually responsible for a lot of incredibly rude, entitled people that they get on a daily basis, because they think that the company can't say no and they're gonna get exactly what they want. Finding a way to take the person's words and throw them right back at them is just oh so satisfying. And when I worked in call centers, that's something I love to do myself. Our next story today comes to us from Sauzer. "Can't work on your laptop without my name badge? Guess it wasn't that critical." Let's jump right in. I worked for a university IT department as a student worker for a little over 4 years. We had a sister department, the Media Center, who loaned out laptops, projectors, and other technology to professors as needed. In my 4th year in employment, I was on a first-name basis with nearly all of the employees of the university, including the head of the Media Center. We'll call her Karen because, obviously. Karen was the queen of her kingdom and had quite a few obnoxious rules in place, but most importantly was an ironclad employee ID policy for checking out laptops. Under normal circumstances, I completely agree with this policy. However, this wasn't a normal circumstance. We got a call from her at 4:40 p.m. on a Friday. We closed at 5. That a laptop she was trying to loan out to a very important professor wasn't able to log into the network, and she requested we come look at it. Sure thing. I make the 10-minute walk across campus from our office to the Media Center with my toolkit. When I get there, I see the professor and Karen and ask to see the laptop. She says, "Wait, Sauzer, you need your name badge. Where is it?" Flash to my name badge, clipped to my jacket, hanging on a coat rack in the ITS office. It's on my jacket, Karen. I forgot to grab it rushing over here." I chuckled a bit. Deadpan, she says, "Sauzer, you can't work on this until you go get your badge." "Karen, I thought this was an emergency. Do you need me to fix this right now?" "Yes, of course," Karen explained, "but we still need to always follow policy." Fair enough, policy is incredibly important. I'll go get my name badge. I left the office, trekked the 10 minutes back to my office, then I picked up the phone and called her. "Hey Karen, just letting you know that because it's 5:20 and policy states student workers can't work after hours, I'll have to come back Monday. Have a great weekend." She fumed at me for a few minutes until I essentially hung up on her. Policy is very important. OP added an edit to this story that gives us an update. It says, "My boss did not like Karen at all. He was an amazing guy in general, late 50s, survived cancer, has MS, but still ran security at biker rallies. He'd been with the university for about 30 years and had 8 weeks PTO, so he would take months off and ride around the country with his equally amazing wife. This was in 2005, and he set the standard for what I would consider a good boss. So he came in Monday morning to a bunch of voicemails from her about it, yells over to me, "Sauzer, did you leave Karen hanging on Friday?" "Yeah, Chuck," his real name because he's amazing, "forgot my name badge." "Yeah, you are pretty forgetful sometimes." He shrugged, and that was that. Karen had to loan her individual work laptop to the professor for the week. For the curious, the problem was that in Windows XP days, when logging in, Windows would attempt to connect to every saved wireless network top to bottom. Because this was a loaner and there were literally hundreds of hotel, airport, and restaurant Wi-Fis, it was taking 8 or 9 minutes for the login prompt to come up. It took me around 30 seconds to clear out all of the saved Wi-Fi connections and return the laptop to them. Karen was not in the office when I went to work on it Monday morning. Now, OP added a second edit here. It says, "I 100% was in the wrong here because I forgot my name badge. I didn't float the name badge policy on purpose. It was a mistake. Anyone familiar with the Midwest will confirm that sometimes it's bitter cold in the morning, but by late afternoon, it's warm enough you don't need a jacket. During my morning tickets, I was wearing a jacket and had my name badge on it. Over lunch, I took my jacket off and didn't need it. It was a mistake, and Karen decided that the badge policy was too important for her to overlook my mistake, which is definitely her prerogative. And it's mine to overlook the student workers cannot be paid overtime rule. The laptop was fixed within 45 business minutes of her reporting the problem to our office, which in my opinion is relatively fast. Name badges and security policies are important, and I could understand her not wanting to let me check out the laptop as if I was a faculty member using their services. But I was an IT employee working late on a Friday even though I wouldn't be done in time, so we both could take care of that professor. I wasn't taking the laptop home, I was working on it in front of her. Additionally, it was her department's policy that she wouldn't let people handle laptops without signing them out, but not ours. Our department had no official name badge policy. There's one more edit on this post by OP. It says, "Well, there are a lot of assumptions going on. Guys, this was 2005. The purpose of the name badge was so when they wrote down who has the laptop, they could write down who had the laptop. But I wasn't taking the laptop anywhere. In no other department and in no other course of our job was our ID required, and at no point in any other part of our jobs did we have to sign for equipment. It was literally this one woman's department." In the comment section down below, there's a user called Gumnos that asked OP a question. It says, "At what point in the story did you know this would be the outcome? I'm thinking as soon as she made you head out to retrieve your badge, you knew she wasn't getting it fixed on your watch." OP replied to this comment and said, "The millisecond I realized I forgot my badge walking through the front door, I knew she was going to greet me by name and that it wouldn't matter." You know, part of me is sitting back here thinking, well, OP was just about to leave for the day. They said it was about 20 minutes before the shift ended. You know, if you just happen to quote unquote forget your badge in your office, going over to the place where you know they're a stickler for it, and oh no, I'll have to walk back to my office to get it, but by then it'll be past quitting time. Come on, OP, you're not fooling anyone. Our next story today comes to us from Odd Sense of Humor. Sign in, even though I've worked here for 12 years? You got it. Let's jump right in. So my malicious compliance started about a month ago at my workplace, where I've been for the past 12 years. On the fateful day, I had forgotten my key fob to buzz through the security gate, so I asked the guard, who I've known and chat to for several years, to let me through. As he was getting up, the moody older guard, some of my staff named him Nasty Nick for good reason, next to him, stopped him and rudely told me to sign in. I explained that I've been working here for over a decade and I'm known to this guard, so he can vouch for me. He said it doesn't matter, it's a health and safety thing in case there was a fire. Not true, this is a shared building and each company is responsible for accounting for their staff. I know because I helped set up this plan with the building's owner. I explained this to him, but he wasn't having it and directed me to the sign-in book, which funnily enough had a printed sheet which stated it was for guests only and had a line saying permanent staff should get a sticker to ID themselves. When I asked about the sticker, he said this was the new process and I had to sign in and out each time I entered or exited the building without my fob. I asked if he was sure. He said 100%. Cue malicious compliance. The UK health and safety body says that ideally, you should take a 5 to 10 minute break each hour away from your computer screen. Not wanting to get RSI or anything, I took it upon myself to take even more regular breaks, especially when Nasty Nick was on shift. So for my break, I would go on short walks outside, and would you know it, I am getting very forgetful in my old age and keep forgetting to bring in my fob. So each time I come to sign in, Nasty Nick would need to get up, open his door, undo his keys to buzz me in. Quite often, I would forget something in my car just as he's about to let me in, and he'll need to make his round trip back to the little office. My record was 13 little breaks over the day. After about 2 weeks of this, I managed to have a catch up with the younger guard, and he explained that he checked and there was definitely not a need for me to sign in each time, and even better, Nasty Nick was constantly moaning about me to the other security guys about the idiot who keeps forgetting his fob. OP added an edit onto this one. It says, Edit. I can't spell for all the T in England. Just to clear up some points as I can't respond to all your lovely messages. I'm a dick, wanker, Karen, small PP for doing this. Well, yeah, isn't that what malicious compliance is? Obeying the letter of law, if not the spirit, and making it a slight inconvenience to the person enforcing the malicious compliance? You should have followed the security process. Malicious Compliance Guard made up own rules in contradiction to the set policy for security, which was why Operation Malicious Compliance went into place. If he had stuck to the set policy, he wouldn't have been the target of malicious compliance. Leave the old man alone. He's mid-40s at most, not overweight, just very, very rude, hence the nickname, and prone to making up own rules. Why are you not working? How have you got so much time to maliciously comply? I'm in the UK, where a lot of modern companies value health and well-being of their staff and use this as the backbone of a successful business. Frankly, I'd be very upset if I heard any of my staff were upset, overworked, or stressed. I always make a point to have them take regular breaks. Jumping down to the comment section in this one, there's one from a user called FroggyC19. It says, "At my old job, it didn't matter who you were. If you didn't have your card, you had to be signed in by security and are then given a temp pass that you hand in at the end of your day. They would check to make sure you still worked there before you got your temp pass." This story actually got me thinking a little bit because they gave you a fob in the first place to get through the gate. That records when you go into the building, and thus they know how many people are in the building if something bad happens, like a fire or who knows what else. So signing in when you go in through the security guards makes sense, honestly. Any place I've worked at in the past that required you to buzz in or have a badge of some sort would have had a policy like this as well, where you had to sign in if you forgot it. It would just be normal procedure. It's time to get some opinions from those listening though. What do you guys think on this story? Do you think OP was in the right for maliciously complying with this guard because they were inconvenienced and had to sign in? Or do you think the guard was right getting them to sign in and, follow policies? Our next story today comes to us from Ackweller Fiction. Fired in 2 weeks. Let's jump right in. I hope this story isn't too long. It's a little convoluted. I worked for 5 years as a federal contractor and eventually rose through the ranks, through blood, sweat, and tears, to a low-level supervisor. I managed a team of 13 working 2 federal contracts. Both contracts were new, and I was supposed to make them successful so the contracts would be renewed. This started right before COVID. Even before the poop hit the fan, my second contract was going badly. The agency flooded us with work, and my boss repeatedly refused to ask them to slow it down. That was literally his only job. As a result, late work began piling up and costing the company lots of money. We did our best to keep up, which in reality meant a ton of unpaid overtime for me. Then COVID hit, and things only got worse. My staff asked almost daily if there would be layoffs, and my boss's response to them was, "We don't know." To me, the answer was that my job was secure, but the others weren't. If the contract failed, he said, I'd have a place on another team. Obviously, the contract failed. My boss personally fired me, and unbeknownst to me, most of my team. I learned who was staying and who was going by talking with each of them personally. No one knew it was going to happen to them until it happened, and they were all shocked that I'd been fired as well. This was August 2020. Panic ensued. After firing me, my boss, who until that day I'd considered a very good friend, had the stones to call and ask me if I'd help him end the contract on a high note. I got fired 2 weeks before my official last day because that company is run by sadists. I told him I'd do my job. As a proud Slytherin, I immediately began doing everything I could, within the rules of course, to send my fired staff home in the best shape possible. We all knew our unused PTO time would cash out, but sick time wouldn't. Everyone was sick those last 2 weeks, and my boss ended up doing most of the work himself. I also sent a ton of people to work from home with COVID-like symptoms, so they could use their time to interview for jobs, etc. I was immediately hired by another federal contractor, and I brought my best former employee along with me. Since then, she and I poached about a dozen employees away from our former employer, who eventually threatened to sue her if she headhunted anyone else. I'm proud to say that our revenge-fueled efforts have taken so many of their good employees that the company is now openly failing and will soon go out of business. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Long Past Due Date. It says, as a federal contracting company, there are really only two things that have to be done right. Keep your customers happy and keep your employees happy. Fail at either and you will fail as a company. Shocking how often companies fail because they can't do those two things at once. I think the commenter here is forgetting one thing because a lot of companies, well, they just want to keep their shareholders happy. Because if the shareholders are happy, their company still has money. In fact, I'd probably go as far to say as most companies only care about the customer and the shareholder, because the employees are replaceable, as OP found out in this story. Our next story today comes to us from Lilith Zerke. If you say so, I'll comply. In the end, we all get screwed. Let's jump right in. Tiny bit of pertinent information. In 2014, I had a C-section to bring my son into the world. I was let go from my previous job because they didn't want the liability if something happened to a pregnant woman on the job. I was rehired by the fast food company where I held my very first job, which is not McDonald's. It's a bit higher price than that, where you could get fried chicken, a hot dog, and a double cheeseburger at the same time. There will be no mention of my child's father because he wasn't there for us. I lived with my eldest sister who was more like a mom to me, which is why she is mentioned in this story. She was the person I had with me when I had my C-section. She has been the one there for my son every moment of his life. My doctor said that if I was going back to work before his recommended 4 to 6 weeks of healing time and rest, that I had to be on light duty, and that I was not to lift more than the weight of my son, which is 6 pounds. The story. I was rehired by a fast food company that was always extremely busy at each major point in the day. Lunch made over $800 between noon and 1 p.m., and dinner made over $700 from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Of note, the only reason I was rehired was because hiring manager loved me to pieces. When I left the first time, she told me I always had a job with her because she loved my work ethic. She said that I was the best worker she'd had in years. Nobody ever picked up extra shifts as quickly as I did. Nobody cared to learn as fast as I did. So since I had previous experience, they wanted me to work lunch rush, but I begged them to let me work dinner. Dinner would allow me to spend quality time with my newborn, and my sister, who I lived with, would be home from her job to take care of my son while I worked. Now, I started a month after my C-section, right? Wrong. I started 2.5 weeks later. If I didn't, I couldn't be hired. I had actually gone back to my doctor and asked his office to write a full letter explaining my light duty requirements, and took it with me my first day back. I walk into the manager's office expecting to see my hiring manager, or at least a manager I recognized. Nope. Enter in stupid manager, who had worked as an hourly employee at another location and thought she knew better than everyone. I handed stupid manager my doctor's note and she looked at it like she was holding a dirty baby diaper. I asked her to make sure hiring manager sees it, and she doesn't respond. I shrug it off and walk to the back where the break room was. I saw that all of my coworkers were the same from the last time I'd worked there, and they all crowded around me to see baby photos. I was crying the entire time because it felt like a homecoming. It felt like I was finally surrounded by a support system. Until stupid manager screamed that we needed to get to work, when there wasn't even a customer. We all scattered like flies and made ourselves look busy. I kept my phone in my pocket before clocking in, and I periodically checked it, always between customers, to make sure nothing had happened to my son while I was gone. I would think most, maybe not all, managers would have understood that I hadn't been texting, just quickly checking for new notifications. But not stupid manager. She hated it. She'd been sitting in office, checking the cameras, and I supposed I'd checked my phone one too many times. Yay, postpartum depression and anxiety. Stupid manager came flying around the corner at light speed and stared daggers at me. Hazel, what the F do you think you're doing? You cannot be on your phone while you're clocked in. You should know this already. Now, I'd never been one to deal well with being yelled at, so I just said I was sorry. Some of my coworkers stood up for me, which again made me cry. Stupid manager apparently hated crying too. She turned back to me, shooting the same daggers into my soul. "What the F are you crying about now?" Thankfully, a customer walked in, so she just stormed off. I saw red. Within the hour, I watched her start to get ready to leave her shift, which I thought was a blessing. Of course, it wasn't. Enter lazy manager, who I'd had issues with the last time I worked there. Not that I said anything, she just never worked. She sat in the office staring at the cameras, eating food from the line, which the company said is illegal. You don't get free food. You get a discount on food. Did she ever pay for it? Not once. She wrote it off as part of the end of day throwaway food. I can't remember what it's actually called on the end of the day report. Lazy manager saw me and her face fell. "Oh, hey Hazel," she said with disdain. I put on the sweetest smile and attempted to make small talk with stupid manager, but they made a major mistake. They left the door cracked, and wouldn't you know it, I worked on the side of the line closest to the door where I could hear everything. This is how it went. "I thought hiring manager told her no." "I guess not. She's been on her phone all day." "Of course she has. She's the worst employee we've ever had." "Ugh, I'll call hiring." "She seems pretty lazy. Oh, here's her pitiful doctor's note." "Ha ha ha, we'll see how that works. It's not like we've never had kids before." Now, that fully pissed me off. But I bit my tongue. I waited for what I knew was coming. I knew exactly what I was going to do, because I was just plain sick of being bad-mouthed by others. Stupid manager leaves and lazy manager calls me to the office. I was in the middle of making an order, but she is the manager after all. I left that poor person's order sitting right on the line and walked into the office. "Yes, lazy manager?" She doesn't even look up from the computer. "Hazel, what's this doctor's note for?" I just take my phone out of my pocket and try to show her pictures of my son. "Oh, you had a kid?" In a tone that implied nobody would want to be with me or something. I smiled sweetly and nod, a plan working itself out in my head. Fast forward 4 days. Lazy manager hasn't been helping us close the store at all, and I've been getting home after 2 a.m. every day, from a place that closes at 10 on weekdays, 11 on weekends. I'm done. My sister can't keep taking care of my child like this, and it's completely unfair. Lazy manager is working again, and we're really busy. I go to put fries in the fryer because our fry cook is busy making chicken tenders. I open the little freezer beside the fryers, and it's empty, which I knew it would be because I never saw anyone put a new box in. "Huh? That sucks. Hey, we're out of fries out here," I yell. No response. "Hey coworkers, fry cook is busy and we need fries out here." Nothing. Odd. Oh well. "Hey, lazy manager, we need fries out here." Lazy manager opens the office door. "Get them yourself, Hazel." I walk over to the office. "Lazy manager, I can't. My doctor says I can't lift more than 6 pounds. Lazy manager rolls her eyes and looks dead at me. "Look, go get the darn fries out of the freezer now. 2 boxes. I don't care about this my doctor said crap. Do it, and stay the heck off your phone." And there it was, my opportunity for malicious compliance. I walk into the freezer and look at the box of French fries. I really shouldn't. This could be detrimental to my health according to my doctor. But lazy manager said so. Now, I'd noticed that morning that a couple of my stitches hadn't started dissolving yet, so I'd already called and scheduled an appointment about 2 weeks early. This was all lining up perfectly. I grabbed that fry box on the bottom shelf and shifted it where I could read its weight. I wasn't supposed to be on my phone, but she obviously couldn't see me in the freezer. I snapped a picture of the box. I sent it to my sister with the message, "Manager told me I have no choice but to do this myself. Doesn't believe my doctor's note at all. Can't respond. She won't let me use my phone anymore either." I made sure the message was sent and then switched my phone off, grabbed that fry box and lifted it and carried it to the little freezer 20 feet away. I'll say one thing for adrenaline. It definitely works to numb the pain until it wears off. I felt a wetness in my pants and excused myself to the break room. Not the bathroom, that was too private for this. I turned where the cameras couldn't see me and looked in my pants. Blood. I was bleeding. But from where? Oh, that's right. the stitches that hadn't started healing yet, but there was another pain I'd never experienced. I walked to lazy manager with a napkin covered in blood. Thankfully, the line wasn't anywhere near the office. I would never contaminate someone's food, because of course I tried to stop the bleeding. I was immediately sent home to my sister, who was in a severe panic over the message. I called my doctor's office with 10 minutes to spare and explained the situation, and was scheduled for the following day and told to go to the hospital if the bleeding continued. My sister and I bandaged me up to the best of our ability, and I waited for my appointment. When my doctor found out why I still picked up that fry box, he sounded more like a concerned father figure when he said, "I'll handle it." But I assured him I had it myself. All I needed from him was a doctor's note. You see, I'd found out that hiring manager, who was also the store manager, who was lined up to become district manager, had come back from vacation. She was actually scheduled for the following day, and I was supposed to work. I waddled into that store, in uniform, doctor's note clutched in one hand, the other grabbing every solid surface it could to absorb some of the shock of movement. She took one look at me and guided me to a chair in the break room, concern written all over her face. "Hazel, what happened?" So I told her everything. She asked me if I ever gave either manager a doctor's note, and I said I had. She couldn't find it, but she didn't need to. What lazy manager and stupid manager didn't know was that my sister had a printer that could scan documents, and we had a weird feeling that we would need a copy of the first doctor's note. So not only did I have a new note clutched in my hand, but stapled to it was a copy of the original note that told the managers that I was supposed to be on light duties because if I ripped a stitch, it could lengthen my healing process. The new note explained that since I was not given light duty, I not only ripped a stitch, but pulled a few muscles in my lower body. When hiring manager read both notes, she was furious. She checked the schedule, and when she saw neither of the other managers were working, she called them both in for a meeting. She asked me if I would stay for said meeting, and that I could sit in the office in her comfy desk chair while we waited. I took that seat and waited for the show. 30 minutes later, hiring manager was giving them an earful, telling them they had no right to disregard a doctor's orders, and that they should never have told me to stop being on my phone. Turns out, hiring manager had worked for this establishment when she had her youngest child, so she knew the anxiety of being away from a newborn for too long. I watched stupid manager get fired on the spot, but not lazy manager. Lazy manager was demoted to line cook because hiring manager told her she needed to relearn some humility. She worked as a line cook at another store for about a month and was then fired for stealing food. OP posted an edit down in the comment section. It says, "Final notes. When I first posted this, some people were wondering why I didn't sue the company. First, it didn't even cross my mind because I'd never been through something like that. Second, when it was brought up to me by my best friend, my sister said it wasn't worth it for some reason. Third, I was more worried about the immediate need to provide diapers and formula for my son. If you were curious, hiring manager found alternative ways for me to work. She gave me a comfortable stool to sit at and trained me on the cash register. I got to sit there and take orders instead of walking around while going through another 2 months of healing. And I was given an extra meal a day through the company at her request. She also helped me get to the restroom every time I needed to go, gave me extra break time, and if she couldn't help me, she made sure someone could. Maybe it was so she didn't have to worry about a lawsuit, but part of me thinks it's because she cared about me like a mother figure would, well before I had my son. My son and I are doing great. I healed amazingly well. Yes, I know my stitches weren't healed, and yes, my logical brain said, this is bad, don't hurt yourself for these people, but I also didn't realize I'd actually ripped the stitches out of my body, nor that I could tear muscles that easily after a major surgery. I didn't ask, the doctor didn't tell, and my sister didn't know either. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. Much love, Hazel." Underneath that, another Reddit user named Drunk CPA responded to OP's comment. It says, "You could have and should have sued both companies in this situation. Firing because you're pregnant is against the Equal Employment Opportunity Act and Americans with Disabilities Act. I think that is the one. The second is just absolute discrimination. Ugh, awful people." I think OP honestly had the opportunity to sue both companies. The one they worked for previously, where they were let go because they were pregnant, which is an absolute no-no, and then the one that they were working for most recently, where they were told to do something that was against their doctor's orders on a note that they brought in and they physically hurt themselves because of it. OP, this is how you become a millionaire. Honestly, if this wasn't that long ago, I would still be talking to a lawyer, especially about the second one, because you injured yourself doing something that your manager told you to do that was against your doctor's orders. You have written proof from your doctor that this happened. Any lawyer would look at this and say, yeah, I'll take it, and you can pay me out of your settlement. Our next story today comes to us from Gavilla438. You want updates? You got it. Let's jump right in. I remembered this particular scenario and wanted to bring it up here. It's a long one, so grab your popcorn and drinks. Here we go. So one of the first IT jobs I worked was for the corporate headquarters of a Midwestern sandwich chain. My brother's best friend was the IT manager of this place and was given full reign to hire anyone he wanted. We had previously worked together in another place and he liked my work ethic, so he ended up asking if I'd take the job. Of course, I said yes, since I genuinely enjoyed working alongside this friend, and I thought it would be cool to report to him. Anyway, a few months go by and everything is going well. I had met and enjoyed mostly everyone in the IT department. Then one day, the CEO congratulates and welcomes a new CTO. This confused me as I thought that my friend's boss was the CTO, but I then was told that he was actually an interim CTO the whole time. So, being green and naive, I decided to take it upon myself to meet the new CTO. The conversation goes more or less like so. Hi, my name is Jerry. I'm one of the help desk technicians here. It's a pleasure to meet you, and looking forward to working with you. Sticks out hand to shake hands. CTO blank stares at my hand, then back at me. Yeah, so if you need anything or have any questions, I will do my best to help. So, just because I am a woman, I need help? And what exactly can a help desk help me with? Don't offer to help me unless I ask for it. Got it? My friend saw this and was honestly shocked. To this day, that entire exchange still haunts me. In any case, I moved on and ensured to try to stay out of the CTO's way. I decided I wanted to just do my job and work with my friend. The entire time I worked there, my friend had kept me in the loop with all his projects and his work so that I could hopefully be successful in the field. Then, one day, when I get to the office, I am informed that my friend was fired by a demand of the CTO, since he was not meeting expectations, despite all the reports showing that his leadership and changes did in fact yield very high ratings for ticket closures and customer satisfaction. That same day, the CTO comes to the help desk room and walks up to me. She then says, "Hey, you worked alongside that manager, right? Well, I'm making you the interim manager since you know most everything he was working on." I felt like this was two slaps to the face. One being that she didn't refer to me by name, and the other that she gives me my friend's job the same day he was fired. A few weeks go by and I just experience going to meeting after meeting. I keep getting told that performance ratings and customer satisfaction is dropping. In particular, the biggest gripe that was reported was that work orders were not getting any updates for days on end, and that the requesters were beginning to feel that we were ignoring their issues. I tried to reply with a plan that I had to help alleviate this, but the CTO said, "We will make sure this is fixed," and would not let me speak. After all those meetings, the CTO sets up a meeting with myself, the director of infrastructure, we'll call him Matt, and the previous interim CTO, who we will call Joe. Okay, how are we going to fix the problem with the work orders? Well, I've got a plan that should help with this. See, what I need to do is canvass the tickets and see what, if I needed a plan, I would have asked for it. I want an answer now. Okay, well, I'm trying to give you the answer, which is a part of this plan. Then it's useless if you can't get to the answer. Any other ideas? At this point, we all stayed fairly silent and the CTO was just more or less rambling to herself. At the end, her response was glorious. Okay, so moving forward, no matter what it is, I want every ticket to be updated immediately with anything that's going on with the request as it's being worked on. Everything that's going on with the request immediately as it happens? Are you sure about that? I feel like that's going to cause, I know what I said. If I have to repeat myself, consider yourself out of a job. Silent for a second and then, understood. She then proceeded to send an email summarizing almost everything that happened in the meeting. She then writes that I have no constructive information to provide. But again, see her plan there. It was then that it occurred to me. Cue malicious compliance. I go back to the help desk room to announce the immediate change. Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a heads up that moving forward, you are to provide every work order with any and all updates possible. That includes anything from looking at the ticket to moving a laptop to typing on it. Just anything you do must be related and entered into a ticket. You want everything in tickets? Yep, you heard that right, everything. As you work on the tickets, keep those updates coming. But if we do that, we could potentially trigger the spam filters. Also, it's going to flood the requesters' mailboxes. Did you mention this to the CTO? She didn't care to hear about it. It's apparently not constructive information. The other 4 technicians stayed silent until one of them said, "A storm is brewing. This is going to be fun." And we all laughed, knowing what was going to happen. I went to the email that the CTO sent regarding the summary of our meeting and opened it in its own window on my computer. I then continued to do as she had asked, and so did the other technicians. It wasn't even an hour before our updates were beginning to get blocked by the spam filters, and we started getting emails from the requesters asking us why we were updating the work orders so much, others asking to be removed from future ticket updates, and many demanding to speak to a manager regarding this sudden disturbance. I updated the IT help desk email with an automatic reply that said something along the following. Thank you for your message. If this is in regards to your ticket updates, rest assured that we have your best interest in mind. A new policy is in place to provide you with as much transparency to your IT requests. This is in hopes to provide a better customer service experience. Please rest assured that we are aware of the amount of tickets this may produce. We hope to provide further support to you and look forward to completing your request shortly. Company IT Help Desk. It was not long after this that the CEO came into the help desk room and demanded to know what the heck was going on. I could tell he was ready to fire someone when I calmly said, "Good afternoon, sir. We are simply following orders," and pointed at my screen to the email with the meeting summary. The CEO looked at me and growled, "Follow me." As we were walking, we passed by Matt's, Joe's, and the CTO's office. Each time the CTO growling at them, "In my office, now." We get to his office and the conversation goes like this. "What the hell is going on?" I will reiterate, I am only following orders. "And what exactly were those orders?" Reiterates the new orders. Here's the email from the CTO regarding this order. "Sir, I can explain. I was just thinking that..." And did no one stop to think what issues this would cause? Well, Jerry did try to explain a plan to the CTO. If I am not mistaken, Jerry knows that the Exchange servers detect multiple updates coming out like this in a small time window. It triggers a spam blocker. And that's why my plan was to update each ticket only once a day, rather than after every single thing that was done towards the request. I asked you to update at the end of the day with everything that happened with the work order. According to your summary, you did ask for ticket updates as they occurred, and Jerry's team provided this. Why did you not listen to Jerry's plan of action? Well, sir, I have been working in the field since before 2000. What can someone like Jerry provide me with? Well, he can provide you with the information to tell you why your idea has just caused the company a ton of money, since now our Exchange server got overloaded. When I was talking about canvassing, I was trying to say that I wanted to reach out to each location's manager to compile a list of tickets to update in a scheduled manner, rather than do them all at once. But since you wouldn't listen to me and even threatened to fire me, I only complied with your plan. I cannot believe this is happening. Why am I being targeted here? At this point, the CEO asked Matt, Joe, and me to leave while he had a word with the CTO on what teamwork means. Several minutes later, the network infrastructure team was able to reboot the Exchange servers and remove the IT help desk mailbox from the spam filters. I later provided a mass email update to the organization, apologizing for any inconveniences that were caused, and that I would be reaching out to provide planned support. I would soon find out that the CTO was placed on an unpaid leave and further investigation was pending. I ended up quitting a few months after that, since after the incident, the CTO was frequently trying to take her grudge out on Joe, Matt, and me. I did leave reporting the incidents to HR. I did later find out that the CTO was terminated and arrested for embezzlement. Now, OP provided an update at the bottom of this story. It says, "Update. I am genuinely shocked, sort of, at how much this blew up. Thank you all. Well, I suppose I will do my best to tie up some loose ends. For starters, for those who don't believe this is real, there are actually court documents out there regarding the embezzlement issues. I won't link them since I would rather not get this story traced back to me, but just think really hard of a popular United States, Midwestern-based sandwich shop and look for embezzlement. You might find your proof." Another thing for anyone who thinks that I was being respectful towards the CTO on my introduction, no, it was not because of chivalry. I respect everyone equally, despite their status or position, or power, I suppose. When I started at this company, everyone was super friendly and genuinely liked working with one another. So greeting new staff in a friendly manner and offering to provide assistance was just a norm. So the fact that she came in with that large of a chip on her shoulder and further accused me of being sexist really threw me off. Furthermore, to clarify, that experience haunts me every time I speak to any female staff, and thoughts race through my head, making me wonder if what I did or said could be deemed sexist, despite knowing darn well that I'm being respectful and professional. Okay, now for the juicy bits, the embezzlement. When I found out about the embezzlement, I had already jumped ship from the place and moved on to a much better company. At the new company, I actually ended up poaching some of the best staff from the previous company to come work alongside me. Although I had almost no connections left at the Sandwich HQ place, some of the people I had brought over still had quite a number of connections back there. When I left, the company was no longer as friendly as it used to be. It was obvious that it was going down the crapper and overall becoming toxic, completely opposite from the image they tried to portray. So one day I come into work and one of my buddies just shoots out of his chair, walks over to my desk, opens Google Chrome, and types in a certain set of keywords, hits search. The top item was the public court documents. I read through it and found out everything. I reached out to Joe to see if he was still there. Sure enough, he had left a few months after the scandal. He informed me of what had happened. So it turns out that Mark and one of his employees were taking money from one of the vendors to be able to basically remain one of the company's utility companies across the US. At this time, the CTO was looking to switch to a different provider, but this particular provider did not want to lose the company since they were their biggest contract. So the CTO made a deal with the head of the provider company, where they were suddenly accepting unreported funds. What ended up happening though was that one of the employees reported his earnings in taxes, which somehow ended up going back to the company. I'm not sure about how this worked out, I am not a tax guy. But then it went to finance department. This is where I called my contact from the finance department. My contact had told me that she saw the reported income and it did not add up at all. His income was basically doubled, but she worked alongside payroll and they knew his wages. The fact that he reported almost double his income could get both him and the company in serious trouble. So she did the only thing she could do, which was have an audit done. They reported this to the CEO and agreed to bring in an outside auditor just to avoid any sort of possible conflicts of interest. The auditor then comes back to find where the extra funds came from, being a special contract with Mark, his employee, and the CTO signed off on it. They worded it very carefully so that it would go under the radar, but the taxes would be charged to the company. A week after the audit, some officials arrived at the company and arrested those 3 individuals. I'm not sure if they served jail time or something, but they sure as heck were walked out of there in handcuffs. Oh, and to answer one final question, for those wondering how in the heck the CTO got to her position in the first place, she was friends with the CEO. She apparently is out there, still being a CTO to this day. At my current job, one of my coworkers asked me if I knew this person's name, and I crap you not, I was like, how the F do you know her? Only to later find out that coworker worked for the CTO and hated her. My coworker was going through some major issues while at that company. And when she opened up about it, the CTO threatened to fire her as she was just a liability waiting to happen. My coworker is in safe hands now, where she gets the treatment and therapy she needs. Hopefully this answers any questions you all may have. I will update again if you have any further questions. Cheers! OP did add one more really short update at the bottom. It says, "Some of you are really good sleuths." Regardless, I'm neither going to confirm or deny the company name, especially because I don't want to dox anyone. Nobody should be doxed. I did see this in a comment, and I will admit that I'm unsure as to why the CTO's name isn't in the court documents. I couldn't tell you since I wasn't there for that. All I know is that she walked out in handcuffs. When a new executive joins a company and treats people like that, they're basically painting a big target on their own back and then handing out pew-pews to everybody who works under them. In this case, the reason the CTO was so defensive might have been because they were trying to cover up the embezzlement scheme. When somebody is being dishonest with a company, they're always looking over their shoulders, and they're not going to allow anyone to get really that close, except for the people that they're conspiring with. So this makes complete sense in this case. What really doesn't make sense in this case is that OP said that they are still a CTO somewhere. How? With an embezzlement charge on your record, how are you not flipping burgers for the rest of your life, if you can even get a job there? Our next story today comes to us from Druidcraft12. Lanyard equals Michael's employee. Let's jump right in. Yesterday evening, I was driving around all over town doing some early Christmas shopping when I passed by a Michael's. At that moment, I remembered I needed more pens for my sketchbook, so I decided to go pick some up. When I was browsing the pens, I saw movement in my periphery and looked over to see a lady walking around confused. She spotted me and asked if I worked there. I told her that I didn't, and she said she thought I did because I was wearing my lanyard that held my keys. We had a bit of a laugh over that as she walked off to find an actual employee. I grabbed the pens I was looking for and a couple chisel nib pens I had never gotten before and left the aisle. I thought the two pens were different, so I read the package to check and realized that they weren't waterproof, so I headed back to the aisle. On my way there, a man approached me and, for the second time tonight, asked me if I worked there. Once again, I said I didn't, and he mentioned the lanyard like the lady before. I told him that was the second time tonight someone had asked me that because of the lanyard. Turns out that was his wife who asked me earlier. We also had a laugh and went on our way. It was late and there weren't a lot of people around, so I guess I understand the mistake. But the funniest part is that Michael's employees, while they do wear lanyards, they wear red Michael's shirts with either jeans or khakis. I was wearing a baggy black Unis Annis shirt, light gray baggy Stranger Things sweatpants, flip-flops, and my lanyard was covered in the ZooMed logo with many keys, car fobs, and a Spider-Man Funko keychain, among other things, dangling from it. Don't know how two people made that mistake, haha. Nothing wild and crazy like most of the stories here, but a fun, wholesome, yet silly interaction. OP did add on a really quick edit at the end. It says, "Edit, I'm not assuming that everyone should know what a Michael's uniform looks like, but retail places usually have uniforms, and they're meant to stand out from everyday street clothes. Also, I forgot to mention I was wearing a floral backpack purse, but they couldn't really see that from the angle they approached me." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called bstrauss3. It says, "When it comes to specialty products, it's often worth a polite risk, especially given the depth of knowledge of the typical employee. Oftentimes, rando dude in the aisle knows way more, especially places like Wurstfly, where it goes in cycles. They hire people with some knowledge, then discover they're expensive, so they have them covering the whole floor. They get replaced by zero knowledge generalists. Lather, rinse, repeat." OP replied to this comment. It says, "That makes sense. I think I overheard them when I went to the front that they were talking about custom frames. I was at the pen, marker, and calligraphy section, not the frames. So even by that logic, it makes it funnier. Haha. If I'm walking around a store and somebody walked up to me and asked me a question about something in that store, I think I'd probably do my best to help them. That's just the kind of person that I am, even if I don't work in that store. Or if I don't have any knowledge on that, I might even help them find a person who works there who can help them in that case. But then again, that also depends on how much of a hurry I'm in, because if I want to get in and out of a store, well, I'm not going to help you at all. Sorry. Our next story today comes to us from Jabukalak. Tired dude who looks like a bum works at the grocery store? Okay then, let's jump right in. Didn't think I'd have a story for here again, considering I rarely leave the house, but here I am. I needed to make an excursion outside to feed the kitty her treats of choice, as I had run out from spoiling her rotten like she demands. All bow before the cat queen in my home, haha. So I get my stuff on and get ready to leave and walk to the grocery store to pick up her tasties and some more cat food. Cast, moi, the meat popsicle, Karen, the clueless idiot, SM, the store manager, and HE, helpful employee, just doing her best. To paint a picture of what I looked like today, I'm in a gray hoodie and a toque, beanie to you Americans, a gray Guinness tank top and navy blue pajama pants, black DC shoes, and an Attack on Titan man purse. I in no way look like an employee of anywhere. I'm in what I like to call bum couture. I also have headphones in listening to some music. I get to the store jamming out to some Slipknot and proceed to go about my business, grab a basket and beeline to the pet aisle. I pass the registers and am instantly accosted by this neon green haired woman in her late 40s wearing a shawl and looking like she belongs in a craft show. She instantly starts in on me, looking everywhere else but at me. Listen here, little man. I'm looking for dish soap, and I have no effing clue where you people hide that crap. Show me where it is now. Moi pulling out one headphone. Pardon? Do you morons even listen? Where is the dish soap? Note, she's snapping her fingers in my face at every word. Moi instantly pissed off at the snapping. I know where it is, but with your attitude, I'm not exactly inclined to help you. Karen puffed up in indignation. Listen here. I cut her off and yelled right back in her face. No, you listen here. These people don't get paid enough to deal with your crap, and I don't work here, so I'm definitely not getting paid enough to take your nasty crap. How about you open your eyes and look at me? What about my appearance says I work here? What about my clothing could possibly indicate that I'm employed here? Karen taken aback that someone dared talk back. Well, I never. Helpful employee moved over from customer service. What's going on here? Karen, before anyone can get a word in. This butthole has been rude to me and dared to talk back to me. I demand he be written up and fired this instant. Page a manager, please. Clueless here thinks I work here and also requires glasses. Helpful employee bolts to go grab the manager and we stand there. I just fold my arms and wait while Karen hisses vitriol at me about how I'm going to be mega fired or whatever. I stopped paying attention and went back to listening to Bleed It Out. Store manager and helpful employee appear minutes later, just as Trivium Sin and the sentence starts. What's going on here? He sort of filled me, Karen, before store manager can finish his sentence, and right back to screaming. This little crap refused to show me where the dish soap was and was rude and insulting to me. I demand you fire him and compensate me for my trouble. She's clueless and thinks I work here somehow. I just want cat food and treats. Ma'am, he is plainly a customer. Look at him. PJs aren't part of the uniform here. Karen actually looks at me and really takes in my appearance for the first time, seeing that I'm literally here dressed like a lazy couch potato, and lets out a weak, oh. Evidently, she's a common problem at this store because the store manager surprises me with his next remark. Store manager coldly and obviously very annoyed. Ma'am, this is the third time this week you've abused staff and customers. Leave now, and if we see you here again, you will be trespassed. You are banned from this location indefinitely. Now, please leave. Karen, enraged, throws her basket to the floor and rages out screaming about lawyers. Store manager apologizes to me for what happened and I just brush it off. Not too worried about it as it's dealt with. Helpful employee goes back to customer service and tells me to check out with her when I get what I need. Gave me a 25% discount on my kitty tasties and kitty food. So all in all, not bad. All it took was dealing with an idiot for 7 minutes. Paid, dipped, and went home. Now I'm sitting here with my cat, happily snoozing in my lap like the glorious queen she is. Down in the comment section for this one, there is a comment from a user called She Who Loves to Draw. It says, how can someone be a problem customer multiple times in the same store during the same week, but not recognize employees or figure out a store's layout and find what they're looking for? OP responded to this comment with, some people exist in their own bubbles and ignore basically everything around them. Plus, this is in Canada. We are generally more tolerant of those people in stores. Unfortunately, we can't even stop thieves as employees. Well, OP, I have to say I completely agree with a rule that says you're not allowed to stop somebody if they're shoplifting. That's just for your personal safety. Some stores have security teams that deal with that, other stores don't, and in those ones you just report it to a manager, they call the police, they go over the footage, see who the person is, confirm that they stole something, and well, they might even show up at their front door. It's just not worth the risk for a regular employee to stop that kind of person. Back to the story though, OP, I congratulate you on keeping your cool. I wouldn't have been able to do that myself. I'm the kind of person that will sit there, and when somebody talks to me like that, I'm gonna speak my mind right back to them, because what are the chances I'll ever see that person again, or they'll have any effect on my life going forward? I just don't care. This next story comes to us from Icon805. Hey, you don't work here. Want a job? Let's jump right in. This didn't happen to me, but it was relayed to me by the manager. There was a locally owned hardware store close to where I was working. This place had the most amazing selection of fasteners, nuts, bolts, screws, etc., down to M2 Allen screws, the kind of stuff you'd never find at a big box. Everything was always in its place. You would never see a bag of M3x5 screws in the M3x8 slot. It was heaven for a tinkerer like me. One evening, I complimented the manager on how immaculate the section always was, and she started laughing. She tells me that it used to be a mess, but one day everything was in the right spots, but none of the employees would take credit. They all hated having to organize that section, and I can't blame them. Everyone was confused. They started joking about it being visited by the Bolt Fairy. A couple days later, she notices a teen boy intently looking through one of the drawers. Then, he moves a few bags around and closes it. She realized she was witnessing the Bolt Fairy in action. He notices he's being watched. He muttered a timid, "I'm sorry," and turns to leave. The manager stops him and says, "Don't be sorry, but I can't have you working here unless you work here. Can you come back later with your mom or dad?" He mutters a shy, "Okay," and leaves. About an hour later, he comes back with his mom. The mom was looking apprehensive and apologetic. The teen looked like he knew he was about to be in big trouble. The mom explained that her son was a high-functioning autistic and loved organizing things. He wouldn't get stressed about things that were disorganized, but just enjoyed sorting stuff. The manager explained that for insurance, legal, and moral reasons, he couldn't work in the store unless he worked for the store. The mom said that it wouldn't happen again, and the teen's eyes started to water. That's when the manager pulled out an application and a uniform polo and asks what hours he wanted to be scheduled. The mom just started laughing, and the boy exploded into tears of joy. I found out later that he worked there for about 2 years, until his family had to move across the country. When he put in his notice, the owner found out where they were moving, went online, and found another locally owned hardware store with good reviews, contacted them, and gave a glowing recommendation. Wait a minute, what is this? A great story with a wonderful shop owner? Can we hear more of these in this subreddit, please? This is a really wacky world we live in, and is the reason for this sub, and stories like this just make you feel good. I have a feeling the owner of this store would be an amazing person to work for. Our next story today comes to us from Your Lock Hour. A lady mistakes me for an employee, gets upset when I explain that I'm not. Let's jump right in. I work for a large financial company. I like to wear suits even though we can do business casual. We have, unfortunately, had to start going back into the office. Luckily, not every day. So to the "I don't work here" lady part, I had left the office. I was wearing a suit as per usual. I stop at Target to get some stuff. It is not that busy, and there are people who obviously work there stocking things. I'm in the area with the cheese with a basket in my hand. Some woman randomly comes up to me. "Do you like the store brand cheese?" I had some in hand deciding between different flavors. It's okay, I guess. I throw it into my basket and begin to turn away, thinking this unnecessary interaction is over. Well, I think they have moved stuff around since the last time I was here. Could you show me where X food item is? I say X item because I had stopped listening at that point. Once she started with the "since the last time," I knew she was going to ask me where some crap was. Lady, there are several people around who clearly work here, I explain. How should I know where that is? I turn and walk away, but feel like she is glaring into the back of my head. The nearest aisle is only a few steps away, so I make a wide turn down it so I can see if this is correct. Sure enough, as I glance back, she is staring at me with a pissed and surprised look on her face. I was able to get away before she started going Karen or something. She was in business casual stuff, I think, so hopefully intelligent and observant enough to know I didn't work there, and looked around my age, millennial. People sometimes say our age cohort is entitled. I have only witnessed a few cases of millennial entitlement, but I couldn't believe this person thought I should help them find something. Come on, lady, use your feet to walk the aisles and eyes to look for what you want. Don't rely on strangers. I barely ever ask people that work at a store where things are. They have more important stuff to do than wasting time pointing me to crap. I would never even think to ask some stranger. How entitled do you need to be to ask some random guy to help you look for something? Even if there had not been several employees in the vicinity, the food area is not that big. Walk around and use your eyes, please. It's like, hello, I don't work here, lady. I'm just as clueless as you are when it comes to where coffee or whatever it was she wanted is. Sorry for the rant, but asking strangers to help you find something in a store reeks of learned helplessness or something. Whoa. Okay, OP added an edit on after this one. It says, added after seeing many of the comments. I see now that I'm the butthole in this situation. I have been given a lot to think about. As I state in some of my replies, I have huge defects in social situations, especially nonverbal, unspoken context. I thought when someone asked me where something was, that was literally all they were asking. I just could not grasp why they would ask me and not an employee. Yeah, OP, it kind of feels like you shot that person down when they were just trying to chat with you. I don't think they even assumed that you were an employee at first. They might have just thought that you'd be a helpful person, especially if they'd seen you walking around and knowing exactly where you're going in the store to get the things that you were getting. You know, another thing that makes me wonder on this one was this person actually trying to hit on OP? Like they were walking up to them and making small talk? Because OP did say that they looked kinda shocked and pissed when OP said their thing to them and walked away. Was this a missed opportunity for love? Our next story today comes to us from Zane the Raptor. Doing my job. Let's jump right in. Okay, I am really quite terrible at recounts, so I will try to keep this quite brief. Basically, I was working casually for a pizza chain, the one that you can't out pizza, and I had to call out for a shift to go to the hospital as I was the victim of some domestic issue and injured my arm. The managers were fine with it, although out of the 4 I spoke to, none of them asked if I was okay, but that's a different matter. I went to the hospital and the doctor looked at it and just put a band-aid over the wounds on my arm and said not to do any heavy lifting and use my arm as little as possible for a couple of days. I questioned whether he could just glue the wound or stitch it, but he refused. I have no idea why. It 100% needed to be glued, and my regular doctor said as much, the same when I showed the injuries to him nearly 2 weeks later, as they still hadn't healed. But after I got to my house from the hospital, I rang my store manager and told him I would only be able to do light duties for a couple of weeks, knowing the doctor at the hospital was wrong, and he said that was not a problem and that he appreciated that I was still willing to work. Anyways, I went back to work 2 days after the injuries occurred. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have been going to work, but I needed money and wasn't going to have any otherwise. As soon as I got there, the manager, not the store manager, let's call them Tammy, told me I would be on dispatch, cutting and boxing all the pizzas and sides. I apologized and explained I wouldn't be able to do that, as the pans can get quite heavy, and the doctor had asked me not to use that arm. I also showed her the bandage I had wrapped my arm in. Tammy asked why I even came to work then, and I explained that I had told the store manager about my circumstances, and they had been happy for me to do light duties. Tammy rolled her eyes and told me to answer the phones and serve customers instead, which I was happy to do. We got quite busy and dishes started piling up, and Tammy told me to get on wash up. I reminded her of my arm and suggested it probably wasn't a good idea to put a fresh wound that was still bleeding slightly in water that was being used to clean dishes. Tammy rolled her eyes and said she was going to the office and she would be back in 20 minutes, and that I had better have all the dishes done and put them away. I tried to explain that I wouldn't be able to lift the fresh out of the oven pans into the sink to wash, but she ignored me and said my arm couldn't be that bad, or the doctor would have glued the wound or given me stitches, and that she wanted the work done. Cue the malicious compliance. I started doing the dishes and was very careful to only lift an amount that I could handle with one hand, despite it not being very safe. 10 minutes later, Tammy yelled out that I wasn't moving fast enough and that I needed to use 2 hands, so I lifted up a larger pile that I could usually carry quite easily with 2 hands, but in this case, my arm went numb and I dropped them, and in reflex tried to catch them, which completely busted the wounds open and blood started dripping everywhere. I quickly bandaged my arm again and cleaned up the blood, but one of the customers had started yelling that I needed help. Tammy came and told me to move out of her way. She then spent the rest of the night cleaning the dishes as the store manager had checked the cameras and seen me doing the dishes and told her they needed to be redone with clean water. And I continued doing the light duties I'd been assigned, aside from a number of admin tasks that I normally did, which she for some reason refused to allow me to do. I found out later Tammy didn't go home until 1 a.m. and kept 2 other staff there to help her when we closed at 10 because she wasn't able to get her work, plus the work she refused to let me do, done on time. Sorry if this is poorly written or doesn't sound like the typical malicious compliance. I promise it was. I'm just really bad at recounts. Now, I do want to mention that right at the beginning of the story, OP mentioned that they went to the hospital because of a domestic issue. They were asked in the comments down below if they were okay and in a safe place now, and they responded that yes, it was a bit of a journey, but they are safe now. Going back to the part about the store manager here, I know they were okay with OP coming in to do light duties, even if the manager that was on duty wasn't, but you'd think that the store manager would have brought on another person at that time, scheduled another person to be there as well, knowing that OP wasn't going to be able to fully do their job. So it seems to me like there was a bit of an issue as far as the management is concerned, where they weren't prepared for this issue with OP, even though OP gave them plenty of notice. But also, Tammy spent her time in the office and didn't really come out and help either, so maybe the store manager was thinking that Tammy would pick up the slack. I guess they were wrong. Our next story today comes to us from Wild Butterscotch 977. Oh, my paper isn't long enough? Okay, let's jump right in. Another post reminded me of my own little bit of malicious compliance back in college. This was more than a decade ago. So in my junior year, I was taking an art history class on medieval art and architecture. Partway through the course, the professor assigned a paper, and the instructions were that the paper length was to be 5 to 9 pages. I wrote my paper and it ended up being 5 pages. I said everything I felt was necessary to say in that amount of pages. When I got the paper back, I received an A-. Now, I'm not usually the type to complain about an A-, but in this case, I knew I wrote a strong paper. I was an art history major, and at this point was 3 years into my program. So I had a buttload of art history classes under my belt, and I effing knew when I produced a good art history paper. So I really wanted to hear why I got the minus instead of a straight A. I went to the professor's office hours to ask why he graded it as such. Yes, he was quite amused someone was complaining about an A-. I didn't give an F. I wanted to know why he took off points and what he thought could have been improved. He hemmed and hawed for a few minutes because there wasn't anything wrong with my paper, and finally he said, well, it could have been longer. I said, the prompt said 5 to 9 pages, and I was within that range. He replied, it could have been longer. Okay, fine. Next paper that came around was the term research paper, and this time the prompt said at least 15 pages. Cue malicious compliance. I worked my butt off writing this research paper, and out of pure spite, I made this dude read no less than 29 effing pages about some stupid medieval church. Now, I had written papers this long before, and a year later when I wrote my honors thesis, it was nearly 4 times that length. But for this particular topic, I was really stretching it. The verbosity was a bit ridiculous. A week or two later, he returned the paper A+ grade. He handed it to me and said with a genuine smile, "It was great, I loved it. You should submit it for publication to a history journal." I begrudgingly submitted my maliciously compliant paper to the journal, and it was accepted and published. Admittedly, I was probably the one that suffered the most from my own malicious compliance, but I didn't care, and I'd do it again. Wow, malicious compliance that turns into a publishing credit that you can put on your CV? That worked out in your favor. This story actually reminds me of way back when I first met my wife. We were both working in a call center, and she was the quality lead who was sitting with me for a call. I didn't like selling on the phone, and she kept pushing to me that I needed to sell to this customer. So I very sarcastically decided to mention it to the customer, and they bought it. So yeah. This next story comes to us from Bubbly Kitty 2425. My dad's cousin's ex. Let's jump right in. I was told this would be good here. Let me tell you a story. My dad's cousin, she's in her late 70s, early 80s. Well, she was married to a super high up of some big company. They had 2 kids, but had a wonderful prenup, and it was ironclad. Where if they got divorced, she got nothing but what was acquired during marriage, and he paid child support. If she cheated, she forfeits everything but child support. If he cheated, he had to pay her alimony and child support until she got remarried. No matter what she made, it was set that she got $5,000 a month alimony. After the kids were 18, her alimony went down to $2,500 if she still was unmarried. The man was loaded. Well, he cheated and she got proof. Actually, his boss caught him and liked her, so he told her, even testified to it. Plus, he didn't deny it in court. He was having an affair with his young secretary. So she got alimony and child support. Well, years later, after she finished cosmetology school, she ended up opening her own hair salon in the South. She has a lot of customers in those upscaled assisted living facilities, so now she's also loaded. She drives a super cute red convertible Mercedes. Well, they divorced when she was 30. She still has never remarried. He's still paying alimony. She has a serious boyfriend for 30 years, but she said just to spite the ex, she will not remarry unless he dies. So he has been married 4 more times, but no matter what, because of his prenup, he insisted on, she still gets that $2,500 a month. Well, for at least 40 to 45 years so far, he's been paying. She said after what he did to her, making her give up her dreams and sign a prenup, she was going to make him pay. She did eventually go finish school and follow her dreams after the kids were grown. She's the nicest person too. His other wives got nowhere near that. He made sure his prenup granted them nothing but child support. Also, her boyfriend and her don't live together. They have been neighbors for years. They both want their own space. He also has his own money. She doesn't even need her ex's money and just puts it in an account for her grandkids' colleges. She also likes to donate some to a women's shelter. She donates it in his name, so he gets notifications or notes that money was donated in his name. She says the day he dies, she and her boyfriend will go to the courthouse. Everyone in the family knows, and every time we see her, my father laughs and says, "So the ex still alive and paying?" Wait a minute. If that's a registered charity and she's making the donations in his name, isn't he able to claim a receipt for those and then have it taken off of his taxes? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's how it works where I live, but I'm not sure about where OP lives. If that's the case, OP might want to think about stopping doing that because they're not actually hurting him. They're actually helping him out, because some of that money that he has to give her on a monthly basis, he's just able to write it off on his taxes. Our next story today comes to us from Diligent Cockroach 700. No pass, no entry. Let's jump right in. This happened quite a few years ago. I started a new job in IT support. After a couple of weeks training and orientation, I was put on my first early shift. IT support were always the first in the building to make sure all the systems were good before the working day started. So I was given my own key to the front door to unlock the building. The entrance had a kind of airlock system. The outer door was unlocked, but then there was another automatic door that needed a swipe card to open it. Everything was fine for the first few days, entered the building, got on with my work. Then, this particular morning, as I unlocked the door, the head of HR walked up behind me. I recognized him as he had sat in on my job interview. I said, "Good morning," swiped my card, and walked in. He followed me. As soon as we were in the building, he pulled me up and told me I shouldn't have let him in without him swiping his pass. His argument was that he might have been fired the day before, so might have been trespassing. The swipe card system was not used to monitor people's work hours or anything like that. I apologized profusely, and he said he'd let it go this time as I was new. Fast forward 2 weeks, I'm unlocking the door and a complete stranger walks up behind me and tried to follow me in. I turn around and ask him to use his pass. He says he has forgotten it. I say then I can't let you in. Then he drops the bombshell, "But I'm the CEO." I apologize and say, "Sorry, I only have your word for that, and I'm under strict instructions from the head of HR not to let anybody in without a pass on pain of disciplinary action." He got quite angry and said again he was the CEO. Later that day, I got a phone call from the head of HR. I thought he was going to bullet me, but instead, he said that I did the right thing and he was going to get the CEO to apologize to me. I did get a short email from the CEO to that effect later in the day. Yeah, OP, even if you knew who the CEO was and you'd been working there for a very long time, I think you could have gotten yourself in some deep doo-doo by letting them into the building. Your HR person was completely right in saying that, well, you don't know if they got fired the day before or not, and you could be letting in somebody who's coming in to make a big fuss or damage things or people, who knows. I mean, that CEO could have even been in cahoots with the HR person, and it could have been a test for you anyway, so that's another thing you gotta think about. This next story comes to us from Hooked on, adult phone stuff. Yeah. Micromanaging 101. Let's jump right in. I am an amused bystander to this. I was working on a compliance project at the time. The practice had once consisted of a single compliance officer, but the company had grown and responsibilities had been split up into multiple departments. The person who had once run the entire practice alone was having a hard time handing off responsibilities to the newly created departments and would find petty ways to claw back control at any time. This person would also panic about investigations that could prove that previous work had not been done consistently, so would revise procedures, definitions, department requirements, etc. to suit whatever agenda happened to be at play. Sometimes this meant ignoring important things. Sometimes this meant filing unnecessary reports. Things changed on a weekly basis. For some unfathomable reason, this person was very concerned about in-person coverage. The entire department had worked remotely throughout COVID. All other departments continued to work remotely. This department had to be in the office, period. To make things worse, working hours were defined as 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a 1-hour break. On multiple occasions, this person would complain, claiming someone had mentioned that the department was deserted before 5 p.m. on Fridays, the day before holidays, etc. Didn't matter that staff was working around 60 hours. Also didn't matter that there was nobody there to complain, as this was the only department on site. There were duties which occasionally required someone to be on call until 6 or 7 p.m. On-call staffers suggested that the person responsible could start late on those days, but no, the workday starts at 8 a.m., no exceptions. The 2 hourly staffers took 2 to 3 hour lunch breaks so that they could still cover the required 8 a.m. start date, be available until 7 p.m., and still meet their no overtime requirements. The salary exempt staff wasn't having any of it though. Calls were no longer answered because staff was to work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and there was to be no flexibility regarding attendance. Staff got tired of this and mutually agreed to give this person exactly what they asked for. They started sending group texts of their work lock screens showing that they were at their desks at 8 a.m. They'd send texts showing that their computers had been locked at 5:01 p.m. I was briefly on this text chain and had to mute it due to the barrage of daily petty texts. The individual in question intended to mean that staff had to be there at least between those hours. Unpaid OT was totally reasonable, but there was to be no concession made to allow staff some flexibility in the way they split up their working hours. That couldn't be said for obvious reasons, so they harped on the 5 p.m. minimum end to workdays. As you can imagine, this was followed by a wave of resignations. Over a 6-month period, the department collapsed, leaving them with less staff than they had before the expansion. Great for us, we ended up winning a lucrative contract to manage and rebuild their entire practice. The staffer responsible for this great resignation was found to be incompetent after their work started to get reviewed independently. The sheer volume of missed issues became impossible to justify, and this person was eventually quietly replaced. A lot of companies over the course of COVID were forced to have their employees work from home, and then they realized, wow, we can actually do this and maybe save some money by not needing all the lights on in this big building we have to house all these people. But then there's always the ones that are stuck in the old times, and they don't think that anybody could work from home and be productive, that we all need to be stuck in one place together so we can all be watched over closely. Yeah, times are changing, bud. Get with it. Our next story today comes to us from Obsidian Winter. Don't deviate from the flowchart? Okay, if you insist. Let's jump right in. About a decade ago, I had the misfortune of working in a call center for a company which provided phone, broadband, and satellite TV channels. This was the days before fiber, so the setup was slightly different from what you see these days. To begin with, I worked in customer services doing things like booking pay-per-views, changing billing dates, and upgrading packages. After a year or so, the powers that be decided the whole call center would be trained on phone and broadband tech support, and we would take those calls instead. Lots of people complained because they weren't technically minded and found the idea of fixing tech issues daunting. I was not worried because I was a massive nerd and was building my own computers from age 12. My dad started teaching me when I was about 8. This new type of call sounded much more interesting and I was looking forward to it. The staff were told, "Don't worry, we will train you, it's simple really." To be fair to them, they were right, kind of. For those who don't know, the original internet connection dial-up was an issue because the phone line was totally used up by the internet connection, meaning you couldn't make calls at the same time as using your Glacier-like connection. Broadband revolutionized this system because it allowed both phone and internet to be used at the same time, and it improved the connection speed to allow for more data to be transferred. Think of dial-up as a country road, slow speeds, and only one kind of traffic at a time, or you end up with a massive queue of cars, lorries, and tractors clogging the road with no filtering space for motorbikes. Broadband is the equivalent of a dual carriageway. 2 lanes of traffic in each direction means you can get more traffic into your city at higher speeds. The issue with more traffic is that you need to add more road signs to direct it to the correct destination. Phone signals to the phone, broadband signals to the router. To do this, you need to have a microfilter as the first thing plugged in to every single phone port in use in the house. The TV installation, which happened first, did not include a microfilter, and customers would assume the TV installation wouldn't need to be messed with, so they didn't add one when they set up their router. The number one complaint on the tech support line was caused by that filter being missing. It resulted in slow or intermittent broadband connections and static on phone lines and drop calls. People would phone up and scream at me because the connection was fine to start with, but the phone line has always been bad, and now the connection keeps dropping. As I mentioned, most of the staff were upset at being moved from a customer service role to a tech role, so the higher-ups had a troubleshooting system created. It was basically a glorified flowchart with a pretty interface. The issue is that whoever created it didn't think it through. No matter where the problem was with the tech issue, the chances were that the customer would need to be calling on a mobile phone so that the right steps could be followed. Most customers did not call on mobiles because in those days, calls from mobile phones were expensive. even calls to landlines, and especially calls to 0845 numbers like call centers. This information was missing from the flowchart, and it meant that if the customer tried to change the way their equipment was connected, or if we ran a line test, it would result in the call dropping because they were disconnecting their landline handset, or we were stopping all signals down the line for a couple of minutes to do the test. It was assumed that we would call our customer back if this happened, because it was impressed into us that the point was to resolve the tech issue. If the customer has to keep calling back and speaking to different people, then it slowed this process down. The flowchart did not say, call your customer back. The thing with me being kind of techie was that I could usually identify the fault in the first minute of the call based on the symptoms described by the customer, and I seem to have a knack for being able to explain tech issues using accessible language, so the customer understands what is happening without feeling condescended to. This meant that my calls were shorter, more efficient, and my customer satisfaction survey results, CSATs, were high. What's not to like? Well, you know how I mentioned that the powers that be decided to take non-techie people and put them in a tech role? It went about as well as you would expect. The flowchart worked to a point, but people who had no tech knowledge tried to cut corners, and it resulted in problems. Free replacement routers were issued for external line fault problems, which is like replacing the roundabout on an interchange when the problem is a tree on the road 10 miles from there. Engineers were sent to resolve external faults caused by dead master phone sockets, about as useful as doing roadworks the next town over in an attempt to get more traffic through a flooded slip road at your town's boundary. Repeat calls were up, resolutions were down, customer satisfaction was low for the call center as a whole. There were about 20 of us who were doing well because, of course, I wasn't the only nerd in the call center. We used our common sense and tech know-how to get results, and my team of about 15 was around 50% tech nerd. Our manager loved it because we had the best results of the whole call center, and she looked amazing, despite being a Luddite herself. Head office kept trying to get the rest of the call center up to our level. They couldn't figure out why people hired to be glorified phone concierges couldn't fix the phone lines. Obviously, the problem must be the staff. Word was issued from on high, thou shalt not deviate from the flowchart. I foolishly thought that they only meant the people with CSATs which were through the floor. I thought the people who knew what we were talking about would be left to it. Slowly but surely, the rest of the call center scores started climbing out of the toilet. Our team was still constantly the highest, but the gap wasn't so embarrassingly massive anymore. Others were resisting using the flowchart. People at the peak of Mount Stupid on the Dunning-Kruger graph fought the idea that they didn't know enough to act without the dubious support of the admittedly quite bad flowchart. Upper management started thinking of ways to make them use it. A new score was added to our stats, adherence to process. Quality control started failing our work if we deviated from the flowchart. My manager started writing me and the others up for it. We tried to explain that the flowchart worked for the people who didn't know how computers actually worked because it methodically went through every possibility over the course of about an hour and a half. If you don't know where the fault is, then eventually you will stumble over the right fix. But when you have some knowledge and can tell within the first 5 seconds that Mr. Smith has accidentally turned off his wireless card, surely it's better customer service to jump right to that? Apparently not. She said that if we deviated from the flowchart again, she would start the disciplinary process, which always and without exception resulted in the person being fired sooner or later. Okay then, no more using our brains. All of us stopped using our prior knowledge to fix the faults quickly. I stopped explaining the issues to the clients. We literally just read the flowchart instructions in all their mind-numbing and typoed glory. I also stopped calling customers back when the line dropped due to flaws in the flowchart. Every time this happened, I would leave a note on the client's profile, line dropped when doing X test. I have been told to never deviate from the flowchart or I will be taken to disciplinary stage. There is no instruction to say I can call my customer back, so I didn't. If customer calls back in, test result was Y. One of my colleagues delighted in telling his customers, yes, I know exactly what the problem is and it will only take 5 minutes to fix, but first I'm required to do these other tests. It will take about 40 minutes to get to the point where I am allowed to fix your issue. Why? Well, manager has threatened me with unemployment if I use my brain. So I have to go down the list here, and it will take 40 minutes to get to the one that I know will resolve your problem. Suddenly, our team was at the bottom of the CSAT board. Our repeat calls were through the roof. We were the worst performing team in the call center. Our manager was being questioned by upper management about why our scores had plummeted. The head office was going to take us off tech and put us onto debt management lines if we didn't start getting our score back up to where it was. Obviously, that didn't happen. Most of the techie people left the business. I stuck it out long enough to see the tech role removed and the debt lines instated. Just before I started my new job with my current employer, head office sent out their annual feedback survey. I ripped them a new one in brutal feedback, from the micromanaging to inappropriate staff roles for the people hired, to predatory upselling to vulnerable customers and unethical debt management practices. I heard that some of the managers were fired, so it seems other people spoke out too, and there were some top-down changes which fixed some of the superficial issues. Oh, and that terrible flowchart, they prettied it up, added the fiber options, and put it on their website so that people with mobile data can fix their own broadband issues. At least they got rid of the typos first. This is one of those stories where you can really tell that OP works in the job that they're talking about, because they were very good at taking all of these technological things that were happening and dumbing them down for the readers like me who may not understand all that techie stuff. Also, most of you know that I've worked in many different jobs and, well, 8 of them happen to be different call centers. And I can tell you that what OP is describing here, unfortunately, isn't just something that happens in the call center that they worked in. It happens in a lot of them. Usually, one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing. You know, sometime I need to write the story about how my whole team was fired from the call center for doing something that our team lead told us to do over and over and over again, and was backed up by the site director as well. Yeah, we were all walked out, including the team lead and the site director. But that's a story for another day. Our next story today comes to us from a deleted account. Karen Boss desperately needed my uniform back the next day. No excuses. Let's jump right in. Okay, so a little backstory first. I am a 20-year-old college student full-time and doing 23 plus hours a week on top of classes to make ends meet. I live paycheck to paycheck and have a car I am and was paying off. I used to work at McDonald's in my hometown, but since I moved to live on campus, which was 45 minutes away from my old job, and I wasn't willing to make the commute, so I decided to apply and got accepted to a small sandwich shop 10 minutes from my college, which was a blessing. It started out great, plenty of hours, easy work, fast days, till the old manager decided to switch stores. The new manager was one of the biggest Karens you have ever met. Like bad, and when I say bad, I really mean it. She completely changed the procedures and made things so much worse. And when I'd have to stay over, sometimes 2 to 3 hours after closing, she'd burst in the next day yelling and screaming at the top of her lungs, "Stop staying later, you have to be out by 8:30, we won't pay you for any time past then." I had no choice, because the list she gave me to do to close the store alone every night, may I add, was extremely time consuming, especially with no help. I was expected to stop serving at 8 and do 5 people's worth of work in 30 minutes. It simply wasn't doable. Hearing I wasn't going to be paid for time I worked, time I spent making sure everything was done on the list before I left, otherwise I'd be fired for not doing all of it, would go unpaid, as well as I'd be fired if I stayed longer than 8:30. There was no winning. On top of that, the moment management switched, they decided they were giving people too many hours and cut me to only 3 hours a week. That went on for 4 weeks till I decided enough was enough. $45 work weeks wasn't even worth putting in the time and effort to even show up. So on one of my weekends, I was with my parents off campus. I was due to work that day. 3 hours, of course, my only day that week. I was shopping near said sandwich shop. It's located inside a Walmart. My mom and I were discussing for the last week how I should just quit, since it seems they're trying to fire me without saying they're firing me, and wanting me to leave on my own so they wouldn't need to fill out paperwork. Right then and there, I decided, know what? F this job, and F my entitled Karen boss. I sent her a text that I quit on the spot and to not expect me to come in that night for my shift. She texts me back ranting about how, since I'm not giving her a 2-week notice, I'll never be able to work at one of those sandwich shops again. At that point, I didn't care. I already had to give up my brand new car of only 4 months because I couldn't pay my loan and insurance. It was a nice car too, a white, shimmery 2016 Hyundai Sonata. I love that thing. I told her at some point that week I'd try to get the brand new uniform that, funnily enough, they had just gave to me the week prior, a whole 3.5 months after I started working there. But I warned her my classes run till right before closing, and I didn't know when I'd be able to do so. She texts back in what I could only imagine was the snarkiest tone possible. "No, I really need that uniform back tomorrow." I told her I'm sorry, but that may not be possible due to my school schedule, and I'm not willing to ditch a class to drop off a few pieces of clothing. She said, "No, you'll bring it back tomorrow. Don't even try to lie to me. You were seen in store the day you quit. No excuses." Okay then, she said no excuses. I didn't want to go into an argument with her over it, and knowing she herself would be closing that day, and my classes ended at 8 exactly, I happily complied. I made sure I'd arrive right as she was closing the lock on the gate. I was bringing the clothes in my reusable shopping bag. I had no throwaway bags, and since she can't take and claim my bag as her own, I was just going to give her the clothes one piece at a time. Knowing she would have to carry them out of the store, juggling them back home made me happy. When it came time to deliver my uniform to her, all the stars seemed to align perfectly. I arrived at 8:30, caught her on the way out with the outfit not even in a reusable bag to begin with. As a touch of sweet, unplanned irony, it was raining outside. Hard rain. The sidewalks, I guess, were extra slippery and muddy, cause on my way in, I slipped and landed chest first into the mud. I was mostly spared though, because the clothes were there to break my fall and absorb most of the filth. Dropping off the muddy, loose clothes, seeing her reaction, watching her stomp her feet, wrench in disgust, holding the clothes 10 feet away from her body, huff and puff, marching out of the store in pure shock and disbelief. She didn't even have words for me. It was the sweetest revenge I had ever seen. This did mean I had to buy a whole new set of clothes and change in the Walmart bathroom, but it was all worth it to see her reaction in the end. After I had returned to my dorm that evening, I sent her a text saying simply, "Enjoy," and blocked her number. Safe to say, karma really did pay out on my end. A bunch of people in the comment section for this one made sure that OP knew that this seemed like a constructive dismissal case because they were cut down to 3 hours a week. They were trying to get OP to quit, that's for certain. Being cut down to 3 hours a week probably opens you up to being approved for EI as well, so that's something that OP should probably look into. Another thing I hope that OP takes away from this experience is that you can report a lot of things. You don't just sit back and take it. We have labor laws for a reason, and you can use them against terrible employers like this. Our next story today comes to us from Dead Procrastinator. The first part of this story was posted a year ago to MaliciousCompliance, and the update was posted yesterday. Here's the first part. You want me to take my jacket off? You got it, boss. Let's jump right in. I work at a secondary education institution. Anyone who has worked in academia will confirm that it's a different brand of crazy. Adding on to that, our staff has no balance in gender or ethnicity, so it's the opposite of toxic masculinity. Toxic femininity doesn't quite roll off the tongue. Anyway, with weak management, it has essentially become a mean girls club. The boss lady's PA is basically Queen Bee, with the rest of us being lowly worker bees. As I am not someone to kiss butt, I am often not very well liked, hence the lowest worker bee. Work buys staff shirts for everyone with our logo on about 3 or 4 times a year. They are usually nice golf shirts or button-up shirts, but the last time? Oof. This is an actual shirt Queen Bee was wearing one day. Boss lady literally squealed in delight like a toddler when she saw it, insisting that all of us get one of these. Guys, let me describe this monstrosity. It was mainly navy blue with a type of print. Think paisley, but not quite. The shirt was filled with cartoonish squiggles and doodles that made absolutely no sense. Apples, fleur-de-lis, seashells, even tiny little fish skeletons. They danced and merged in every direction, in violent shades of teal, beige, salmon pink, turquoise green, and neon purple. So versatile, you can wear it with so many different colors. And if the design wasn't bad enough, the fit was even worse. A size that normally hugs my figure fit me like a circus tent. It billowed out from right under my chest and was so long, the bottom seam came in just above my thighs. The most unflattering cut I have ever worn. It was like a blind person tried to make maternity wear and changed their mind halfway through. It was also sleeveless. The only one of us who voiced her reservation was forced to give it back. She was visibly happy that she wouldn't have to wear it, and this pissed management off. The shirt was made mandatory on Mondays. Being a person that never gets hot, I wore a jacket over it every time, showing as little of it as I could. One day, to solidify our loyalty, it was decided to take a group photo that purposefully excluded the shirtless one. Being super short, I was placed in front. Boss lady looked us over and promptly declared, "OP, you'll remove your jacket, thank you." I replied that I would really rather not. She insisted and we go back and forth. But they were all of them deceived. I'm quite reserved, so no one at work really knows me. I never wear anything sleeveless because I have tattoos all over my shoulder and halfway down my upper arm. I always look normal and professional wearing tailored jackets, cardigans, or 3/4 sleeves. Cue malicious compliance. You want me to take my jacket off? I insist. No exception? None. I remove my jacket and toss it out of the frame in one of the coolest gestures I have ever been able to perform. I turn forward with my left shoulder facing the camera and reveal a Grim Reaper with a sweeping scythe and blue wings that actually matched the ghastly shirt quite well, now that I think about it. There is a noticeable intake of breaths and the whole group falls silent, waiting in anticipation to see who would triumph. It was like a shootout in a western. I look at her blankly, internally screaming, "The F you gonna do now, B?" And I'm pretty sure she heard me. Boss lady realizes she can't go back on what she said without looking like even more of a butt than she already does, and turns to face the camera. Y'all, that was one of my favorite pictures of all time. Pissed off boss lady in front with a smile that just doesn't reach her eyes. Tatted up admin immediately to her left with the biggest grin in the whole picture. Everyone else's faces were a mixture of amusement and confusion. Queen Bee slightly frowning as she was still trying to figure out what the F just happened. Marketing showed it to me before deleting it, and we had a few laughs. Needless to say, that photo did not make it into the newsletter as was originally intended. On to part 2 of this story posted by the same OP one day ago. This one's titled, "You Want Me to Wear This Shirt? Again? You got it, boss." Let's jump right in. So this post follows on a previous post from a year back, regarding a hideous shirt we had to wear to work. I think it's pretty cool, and if I have to recap, this post will be too long. Socially and politically, our work environment is a mean girls club. I work at a secondary education institution on the support team. For stupid reasons, a hideous shirt that one of the support staff was wearing one day became our mandatory Monday shirt. Cue this week, it's photo week. We are taking group photos of all the staff, learners, and various teams and committees. These are all going in the annual magazine, which is quite a big deal. All staff were informed that they could wear whatever they wished, as long as it lined up with the color palette of the magazine. This was shared with everyone. They actually chose really pretty shades of pink, peach, mauve, and sky blue. The support team was really happy we could skip the ghastly shirt, until we couldn't. Last week, Thursday, it was communicated to us that we would wear the monstrosity. Of the whole institution, our group would be the only one that looked like crap. The next day, Friday, I was at the hairdresser and inspiration struck. I already have a short pixie cut that I color ultraviolet, basically very dark brown with a purple sheen. I revealed my plans to my stylist and she loved it. After my haircut, I went shopping. Now, one of the things touted as an advantage of the ugly shirt was the array of colors it contained and how versatile it is, as you can wear it with so many colors. I just don't think you were meant to wear all the colors together at once. Now, in my previous post, I ruined the photo when the sleeveless shirt unexpectedly revealed the tattoos on my left arm and shoulder. So I knew this year they would strategically place me with my right side facing forward. I know how they compose and space these photos by now. I've been here too long. So imagine their surprise when I pitch up with an asymmetrical pixie cut. Long bangs, sweeping to the left, regular sideburns to the left, and the right side shaved in a buzz cut. All colored bright purple. Seriously, when I'm facing that way, I look different. So they try to subtly hide me in the middle at the back, slightly behind the person to the left to hide those pesky tattoos. Because if I'm facing forward, I look sufficiently professional. But I'm wearing killer platform heels, something I haven't done in 10 years, which makes me almost a hand taller than everyone else. I politely decline their request to take my shoes off, so I have to sit in the front. Now, you can clearly see my formal dress pants in bottle green, as well as my undershirt in vibrant teal, my killer heels in pale sparkly gold, and my wide salmon pink belt. Now, I didn't waste any money on these items. Wearing any of them alone or in different combinations looks fine, so I will be using them all. No matter what they tried, they could not find a way to make the group look coherently polished and professional. Because one way they had a tatted up admin, if they photoshopped those out, I would complain politely but firmly. The other way they had an angry emo boy. One way the height was off, and the other way they had someone in an ensemble so garish it offended the senses. This afternoon, a while after work, we were informed that the group photo would be redone for the support team. We were kindly requested to wear the colors as indicated in the color palette tomorrow. In the group WhatsApp, I commented, "Duly noted," and received a ton of PMs joking about it. On the brighter side, I have received a ton of compliments on the hairstyle. Something so daring, in a sane environment, I never would have tried it. I've colored it back to dark ultraviolet, box color yo takes 20 minutes, which complements my light pink dress nicely, and the wide salmon pink belt rounds it off well. In the comment section for this one, there's one that really stood out to me. It's from a user called McFlame13. It says, "We need to abolish making people look professional, as it would actually show that the company has no creativity. If everyone wore what they want, as long as it wasn't offensive or promoted anything illegal, it would show that the company is a good company and would rather have people that are good at their jobs than people that look good." While I can agree with what the commenter is saying, I honestly feel really good when I dress to impress. And I feel when I am dressed to impress, I have a lot more productivity. There's gotta be something to that. A lot of places these days don't really require professional dress anyway. They rely on business casual, which is comfy clothes that still looks pretty good. Well, OP, I have to say, after getting an update a year later, I hope that next year around this time, you have another epic story of how you messed up their perfect photo. Our next story today comes to us from K Saves. You want your magazine? Fine, I'll deliver it right to your hand. Let's jump right in. Recently, I, 15 female, started getting complaints on the paper round I work. I work a paper round for extra income since I'm not 16 yet, and legally in the UK cannot get a proper job. I've had it for 2 years. Lately though, about 2 months or so, I got a new house on the round, and they've been nothing but a pain. Not only is it out of the way of my round, so pretty much a hassle to get to, they have to be very rude too. Lately, my boss has been forgetting to put magazines into the papers, and they've constantly been complaining, resulting in me getting reprimanded. That in itself isn't very bad, but they've yelled at me for not closing their gate properly, getting too close to their Ring doorbell, and waving at their child from the window in the morning. All small things that led to this malicious compliance. 5 weeks ago, however, they were still complaining about getting no magazine, despite me making sure before I delivered that it went through and I was getting tired. The next time I delivered their papers, I knocked. Bear in mind, I have to get these papers delivered quickly, so it was 6 a.m. at this point. However, I knocked and knocked until the wife of the grumpy guy opened the door, half asleep and looking agitated. She coughs slightly, and in a typical Karen voice she goes, "What the hell do you want?" I look at her with fake stun, as if I don't know what I'm doing, and tell her, "I'm just delivering the magazine like you asked." At this moment, she knew she couldn't complain, because 1, her Ring doorbell caught it all, and 2, I had physically handed it to her this time. Undeniable proof. For the next upcoming weeks, I knocked until they answered the door, making sure to knock extra loud. This morning, however, the husband answered the door and he looked defeated. He flat out looked at me and apologized. In his words at least, "We get it, we're sorry about the complaints, please stop knocking so early and just get the paper through the door." After that long round, nothing felt more satisfactory than the sweet taste of malicious compliance. I may be underpaid, but it was all worth it to see that face. Jumping down to the comment section in this one, we have one from a user called 87 Lonely Girl. "You learned a valuable lesson that some adults never do. Manners cost nothing, and the poetic justice of giving someone exactly what they want can be so much better than getting yourself worked up. This will be a story you tell for decades to come." OP replied to this comment and said, "Thank you. Hopefully I'll have a lot more malicious compliance to come. People on these rounds are all pretty entitled when it comes to getting their papers on time. Haha." Well, OP, if you ever have another person like this on your round, I have something you could do that might get them a little annoyed. Every single time you go to deliver a paper, deliver it a couple inches closer to the road and not to their front door. Every single time, keep moving it back further and further and further so they have to come right out of their house to get it. It's just a little bit of petty revenge mixed with some malicious compliance, but trust me, it works. Our next story today comes to us from I Carum. The day the dishwasher exploded. Let's jump right in. Standard disclaimers here, English is not my first language. Feel free to dunk on my grammar all you want. I was reading my daily quota of malicious compliance when I remembered a distant memory that might apply here. I was a young girl at the time, around 10 years old I believe. Being from a somewhat well-off family in Brazil, we used to have helpers around the house. On weekdays, a nice old lady would come in to clean the house and cook lunch for us. On the weekends, it was me and my sibling, 9 years my senior, who were tasked with cleaning up after lunch, and that meant loading up the dishwasher. Now, my sibling is a master dishwasher loader. They do an incredible game of Tetris with the dishes, and it somehow works. With that in mind, my mother decided it was a good idea to let prepubescent me take a shot at the dishwasher. First time, it didn't go well. I loaded the dishwasher as best as I could, but there were still a lot of dishes left. Me, being a little kid, didn't understand the tricks of finessing cups on the plate holders and whatnot. Understandably, my mother was a bit frustrated, considering she was used to my sibling's sorcery, and told me, and I quote, "Next time, you better fill the dishwasher up." Bad mistake. Cue to next weekend. Me, being a smart butt, loaded that dishwasher up as much as humanly possible. I remember stacking glass trays up on each other, jamming cutlery in the cutlery holder until it was akin to a solid block of metal, and I'm pretty sure I put multiple plates on each row. And then I put the soap in, closed that bad boy, and turned it on. I wouldn't say the dishwasher exploded, but the contents sure as heck did. I assume due to the hot water jets, some dishes, all made of glass by the way, kept clanging against each other and broke, and the glass shards flew out, breaking other dishes. Hours later, while I was entertaining myself in the yard by trying to find worms in the dirt, I heard a scream from the kitchen. The dishwasher sat there, very much broken, with water and soap gushing out. There were glass shards everywhere. My mother stood there, staring at the dishwasher, with what I assume was terror in her eyes. She turned to me, "What did you do?" Me, the devil spawn, knowing exactly what I did, I filled it up, like you said. Next time, my sibling taught me how to load the dishwasher properly, after we bought a new dishwasher, and a new set of dishes. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called My Thick Beach. We're being specific on pronunciation there. It says, "I hate parents that get mad because their kid doesn't know how to do anything. Why don't they know anything? Didn't you teach them? OP replied to this comment and said, "My mom tried to make fun of me to her friends about how I don't know how to wash clothes. I did turn to her and say, well, no one taught me how, not even you. So now she only makes fun of me when I'm not present." OP, I'm glad your sister was able to show you how to get it done properly, because it sounds to me like your parents just didn't want to bother. I also want to mention that pretty much every time we see one of those English isn't my first language disclaimers, the writing is so much better than people who have been brought up on English and have it as a first language and have been speaking it their whole life. OP, I don't think you need to use that disclaimer anymore. Your English is better than mine.